Hi, I'm Nat.
And I'm Guy. Free speech versus hate speech. Which one's right? It seems like the Western world is going headfirst into hate speech, much like China and Russia and other authoritarian countries. Donald Trump is standing up for free speech along with Elon Musk. Elon Musk is going to need his backing now more than ever because the Western world is absolutely coming for X right now. This is going to be the through line through, I think, a lot of the episode. We do geopolitics by subject matter and then country by country. And I think almost every single country we're going
region
into.
by region.
Country by country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So should we start?
Yeah, let's start it out. If you're not subscribed, please do so. We're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers. We just reached our super chat monetization, so that was nice.
Not super. Yeah, super chat.
Yeah.
We applied.
We got about 300 more subscribers to go, so if you're not subscribed, please do so. But let's get into the first article. Oh, also, you can leave comments or questions. We read them all at the end of each segment. So
Yes, and hello to everybody as well.
yeah, good to see everybody.
Hope you had a good weekend. Okay, let's start. So, centering on Elon and the fight that he's going to start having with the UK, it says, I love Elon for this.
Yeah, and I thought we would start off on Elon Musk's kind of stance on free speech so we get an idea. It's not just about money, it's really about speech. And if it wasn't for Elon Musk, I can only shudder at where we would be today in the Western world. I mean, they're still coming for this platform.
Way down.
Do your tweets hurt the company? Are there Tesla owners who say, I don't agree with his political position because, and I know it because he shares so much? Or are there advertisers on Twitter that Linda Yaccarino will come and say, you got to stop, man. Or, I can't get these ads because of some of the things you tweet.
I'm reminded of the scene in The Princess Bride. He says, offer me money. Offer me power. I don't care.
So you just don't care. You want to share what you have to say.
I'll say what I want to say, and if the consequence of that is losing money, so be it.
And that's an absolute base take. It's going to take somebody like that to stand up to the entirety of the Western world, Canada, Australia, the UK, the European Union. They're coming together behind the scenes and they all want to ban X simultaneously, thinking Donald Trump won't be able to do anything and Elon Musk will have to change his behavior. Keir Starmer also said, if Elon Musk doesn't change X, we'll change X. He's not in control of it. I don't know if he thinks he's the authoritarian of the world, but I did like that picture of him in his AI bikini there.
And that is what started to cause all of this rile up in the UK and other, curiously enough, Commonwealth countries, but also other countries in general.
Yeah.
From Basil the Great, breaking: Keir Starmer working with Canada and Australia to implement an X ban. Ministers believe it will send a powerful message to Elon Musk if countries do it together. Canada from the Liberal Party, Australia has a Labour Party, and the UK has a Labour Party. Starmer rallies international support to take on Musk. Tech billionaire says threat to ban social media over sexualized AI images is censorship.
Yeah, and the EU is rumored to be in these talks as well. The US has a lot of leverage over Canada now, especially with the separatist movement that's gaining steam in Alberta, Saskatchewan, Quebec, and possibly even BC. So he does not want to mess up that tariff deal. There may be an election called in Canada. It's rumored that Carney is backing out of this thing now. Luckily, Trump had enough leverage over one of those countries. They're not quite as strong when there's only two of them left. The EU also wants to get in on this ban, but again, Trump has enough leverage over them with this Ukraine-Russia war that's going on right now.
Mm-hmm. And of course, we saw, and if you haven't seen it, you can kind of see it on our thumbnail, but there were a lot of AI-generated images of Keir Starmer and other world leaders in their bikinis.
Yeah, people are using AI to mock Keir Starmer, to mock the EU leaders, to mock the Australian leaders. It's these leaders that are separated from their civilian population and going the opposite direction of what their population wants them to do. So what's the population doing? It's mocking them. It's memeing them with AI. And they've never had a problem with this until they were put in bikinis. And it's not like this is overly sexualized imagery. This is simply really making fun of them, putting them in bikinis. I think it's funny, but Western neoliberal culture in general has been all for sexualization of the media, of movies, of television. But now when it's coming to memeing politicians finally have a problem with it. It's kind of funny because they're starting to make laws against this in all of these countries, and it only took 9 days. But when there are rape gangs in these countries and a number of other things, that the politicians just weren't doing their jobs, whether it was the economy, crime, or anything else, they couldn't seem to fix it. But as soon as there's an AI image of these politicians in swimsuits, they want to fix it immediately.
I mean, I guess I can give not the other side, not that I agree with censorship at all, but the understanding the concerns that AI could create, images of whoever, whenever. I mean, I'm a public face, I guess, in a way, and those concerns have crossed my mind, but I would not give up freedom of speech over those concerns.
Yeah.
Should there be some kind of maybe mechanism to either take them down or to have X only do it to really well-known figures? Maybe, but I mean,
I don't
mockery
know. It's a slippery slope, and this is why
that's the thing. But that's why I understand the concerns.
I don't understand them at all. I'm a free speech absolutist. As soon as you start going down the path of hate speech or censoring other things, power is going to consolidate around themselves so they can control the population. I remember when there was blasphemy laws and all kinds of other things in a lot of these countries because of religion, then free speech kind of took away a lot of that. But now that neoliberalism is kind of taking control, they want to bring blasphemy laws back, but to protect the political class.
Mm-hmm. But again, I do see the other side, because I wouldn't want to see a picture of me doing something disgusting that I never did, and then that gets spread around.
Okay, let's talk about this for a minute, because since AI's come out, this has been happening to people, and they never wanted to fix it. But as soon as it happened to the politicians, within 9 days, now they're immediately going to fix it. This wasn't a big enough problem to fix, or they knew there was going to be pushback from the civilian population that would possibly elect them or unelect them, but now that's them in photos, they're all against it.
And my question is, what is the difference between an AI, and very clearly generated AI image, versus cartoons, and the cartoons that have been, a staple of political discourse for the past, since we've been drawing things, essentially.
If they can't stand the heat, they need to stay out of the kitchen in politics. The original person they memed, and this was about 10 years ago, was Donald Trump. Before there was even AI, they were editing photos, making fun of him in a million different ways.
Holding his head up all bloody.
Holding it, yeah. And he leaned into it, and he just went with it. He didn't try to ban or censor the civilian population. I mean, literally, he had a pin on the other day that was a meme of himself with a giant head. So even to this day, he's still leaning into it, and he's not trying to censor liberals in the United States that are trying to meme on him.
Well, but anytime any kind of law enforcement, as we're seeing now in Minnesota, tries to come in and actually, restore order, then they say that they're being censored and trying to be silenced, but it's only when they actually go ahead and do crimes.
Okay, let's get into the next part of this.
Yes, from Basil the Great, the UK government have just announced new laws making it illegal to create non-consensual intimate images of others using AI. It's amazing how they did this in just days, yet it's been 209 days since they announced disgusting gang inquiry, and no progress has been made at all.
They're trying to frame this around children and other things of that nature, but what they're sneaking into this is memeing on politicians through AI.
And it is monetizing abuse. So let me be crystal clear. Under the Online Safety Act, sharing intimate images without someone's consent or threatening to share them, including images of people in their underwear, is a criminal offense for individuals.
And when she said intimate images, she had to say the second part, which is people in their swimsuits, or what did she say? In their underwear, because this is what people were going after the politicians with. And the whole reason this came out.
But again, I kind of do agree with the first bit of non-consensually sharing images around, which is an issue and has been an issue for a long time, but this is not the way to go about it.
They're not naked. They're literally in swimsuits.
No, I know, but when it's like children or women that don't consent to it, I do understand it, but
they never fixed it back then.
I know.
And now that it's politicians, it gets fixed like that.
Or they're trying to fix it.
And for platforms. My predecessor, the Right Honourable Member for Hove and Portslade, rightly made this a priority offence, so services have to take proactive action to stop this content from appearing in the first place. The Data Act, passed last year, made it a criminal offence to create or request the creation of non-consensual intimate images. And today, I can announce to the House that this offence will be brought into force this week. And that I will make it a priority offence in the Online Safety Act too. This means individuals are committing a criminal offence if they create or seek to create such content, including on X. And anyone who does this should expect to face the full extent of the law.
And they keep going after X every time. All the AI systems do the exact same thing. They're not asking for explicit images. They're literally asking for politicians in swimsuits. She keeps saying intimate images, and that's a different issue. They're trying to sneak this into the bill so you can't meme on politicians, which is absolutely crazy. They're losing right now, and they don't know what to do.
But then at the same time, and again, to play kind of the devil's advocate, I do agree that X is a cesspool of disgusting things if you want to find them. Sometimes even if you don't want to find them. And that is where the fine line that you always bring up of pornography is that free speech.
That you're absolutely crazy.
Because we talked about this the other day.
You're absolutely,
about,
yeah.
is pornography free speech?
Maybe you're not. I'm absolutely a free speech absolutist.
I said that it was free speech and you said that it wasn't last time.
Pornography is not.
I know, but what
That's
I'm saying
not pornography,
is, no,
what they're doing
I'm
to
not
the-
saying that is, but I am saying on X, you can inadvertently, even if you're trying to find something else, because they use hashtags and keywords to get themselves ranked higher, you can find a lot of things
Not intentionally, and it is taken down.
But not fast enough.
Yeah, but they can only do so much. They literally have billions of users
but
worldwide.
what I'm saying is it does exist on there. And what happens when AI can be used to create pornography of people without their consent?
So now you want to ban the whole platform?
You're going from one extreme to the other.
Well,
No,
I'm telling you, the solution is X is doing the best they can right now, and they're doing a pretty damn good job.
But I'm saying it's not like it's not a problem, is my point.
It isn't a problem because they're doing the best the technology has to fix it right now. It gets taken down in a pretty expedient manner. Obviously, in your opinion, not fast enough. But once something pops
I've seen
up,
some things that I didn't want to see. But again, I am saying I am a free
Also,
speech absolutist, but there is that murky question in the air of, especially for conservatives or people that don't want to see those things, why is that so explicitly and so available on Instagram? I get it, that's because that's what they do, but on X, where it is supposed to be,
because you're
a little bit more modern.
You're an adult, and you
I know I'm an adult, but I still don't want to see that.
Yeah, but you sign up for something like X that is so crucially important to global news and other things. They have to have a lot of leniency to get news and other graphic things out there, and they do clean it up fairly quickly.
What I'm trying to get at is, where do you stand on the whole, is pornography
I already
free
told
speech
you.
or not?
No, it's not. In my opinion, it's not.
So that shouldn't be allowed on X.
And they don't allow it. They
But what
take
if
it down.
you create it using AI? So it's not actually people, it's
still
pixels.
pornography. It's still not allowed, and they still do take it down. They already have the policy of taking it down. So you're really trying to come down on the side of the British government.
No, but then what I'm going to ask next is, what if the British government or whoever wants to censor X or Grok says, well, we're going to consider this, putting people in bikinis, as pornography, so you can't have it on X. That would be the next.
That's not. But
so you're either.
But the problem is, liberal governments around the world has already said people in swimsuits is not pornography, and they've classified that into legislation and law. So now they're kind of running up against their own heads here.
Yes, that's what I wanted to get at.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I get really upset when it comes to free speech. It's the most fundamental first principle we need, and it is being attacked worldwide, not only through attacking X, but through legislation here in Mexico, in Canada, in the EU, in Australia. They're literally banning you from talking about subjects like immigration right now in the EU. So if you're running for politics and you have an anti-immigration stance, that's considered hate speech. So you're not even allowed to talk about it during your election.
And on Friday we actually talked about here in Mexico how the son of former President AMLO also got angry at X and also is trying to do something about AI because Grok, not with pictures or anything, but insulted him, saying that he was a useless fat man.
Well, I'd say this.
And he got so angry that now I'm fearing that there will be legislation passed. And since I mean, at least in the UK, there's maybe a little bit of available pushback, not that they'll listen to it, but here, in Mexico, the government and Morena, which is the current ruling party, has every single branch of government already. So the fact that they could ban X or do something even, I don't think they would be able to. They don't even know how VPNs work or how to keep their own security systems safe. I'll talk about this in Spanish later. But I do think that that would be a way
No.
faster way to pass it through.
No, you're naive. You do politics every day, and you're telling me Mexico's going to ban X?
No, I'm saying
Hold on, and I'm going to explain.
it'll be a faster track to
No.
actually get it. No, I'm not saying not that the UK or the Canada or Australia, but what I'm saying is it is a very clear example of how so quickly, just because you're hurting someone's feelings, they'll be able to pass legislation real quick, and it'll be really hard to get rid of it. Same as what happened in Canada with their attempts at social media bans.
The countries that aren't going to ban X are the countries that Donald Trump has leverage over, like Canada, like Mexico, through the tariff deal right now. Countries like the UK or certain EU countries may outright ban X. I mean, France is going to be high on that list.
And I mean, we do know that, for example, and Tom Harwood says here, if the government bans Twitter, I'll still be tweeting just as people in Russia, China, or Iran can still tweet. In fact, we once had a prime minister tell us all how to evade authoritarians intent on suppressing our speech.
Yeah, I mean, Western society was based upon free speech, and when we wanted to get when we wanted to get messages out, or the UK government wanted to get messages in to China or Russia or other countries to cause color revolutions or for any other purpose, they were literally making videos of how to get around government censorship. The UK people need to pay attention to this video here and do the exact same thing their government advised them just a few years ago.
All you need is a VPN connection to access independent information from anywhere in the world. And when you find the truth, share it. All you need is a...
And we already know that the UK government, when they tried to implement their ban on under 16, or at least the verification, the ID verification for anybody wanting to use the internet, kids were really quick on knew how to evade and how to get past that, and also how to use VPNs. VPNs became the most downloaded apps in the UK right after they introduced that new legislation. So will it be actually, and then Starlink, which Elon Musk could just fly over whatever country wants to ban X, and we've seen the attempts of banning X in Brazil, for example, and also how that went.
Well, I think this is probably a bigger and a more long-term game plan. Elon Musk has been planning for his cell phone that would go directly to Starlink. This would bypass any kind of censorship that the government could kind of impose on the internet in that country. It would be global internet. So if he started selling these phones, these would be huge, either black market phones if countries banned them, but people would still have access to them to get uncensored internet. I mean, it would be a huge marketing campaign. And it would really bring the idea of what free speech is, and do global citizens deserve free speech and deserve to listen to whoever they want to listen to. And if Elon Musk can bypass government's censorship of the internet by going to direct satellite phones, it'd be interesting.
But then also, if Elon Musk can do that, what happens if nefarious actors can bypass security systems, for example? Would that be okay?
So we could talk about this in the context of China. China has satellites in space. Russia has the ability to do that too en masse to create a similar Starlink system. So if they wanted to put out censor-free phones, I'm okay with it. They can do the exact same thing, but their phones are going to have a ton of censorship, so the free market isn't going to buy it up. The whole point is these Western governments around the world that really, their entire society was based upon free speech. Citizens in their country believed they had free speech for generations. I mean, my generation was raised by the previous generation, and free speech was the fundamental principle that Western society was based around. But it wasn't enshrined in a lot of these countries' constitutions, like Canada. They have a notwithstanding clause there, much like other countries, that, oh, you have free speech except for this subject matter, or if an emergency happens in the country, then we're allowed to censor. So the American Constitution and the free speech principle that's enshrined there is very strong, and that's why a lot of these countries are having trouble trying to censor the United States right now.
And it is a principle that initially came from British governance and law, which is now ironic that they're the ones that are doing exactly the opposite. But for example, in Germany, also from Naomi Siebt, says Germany protects politicians from hate speech. It is illegal, according to 188 Criminal Code, to insult or damage the reputation of politicians, which is what you should do in a democratic society.
This is absolutely...
Violations result in house raids, fines, and jail. The government fears X because Dilker offend the tyrants. Keir Starmer wants to attack Elon Musk and ban Grok and thus X.
Yeah, and they're also banning specific issues you're not allowed to talk about in a lot of these EU countries, whether it's migration or climate change. It's been decided by the science, and if you talk against it, it's literally considered hate speech through legislation in a lot of these countries.
Another very dystopian law that was introduced under Angela Merkel, shocker, that I have mentioned many times is Article 188 because it's so horrific. It basically makes it illegal for us to insult or damage the reputation of a politician. It's a majesty clause. It means that some animals are more equal than others. You're not allowed to insult or damage the reputation of a politician, which is so anti-democratic, because if you're not allowed to damage the reputation of a politician, then how are you allowed to even criticize them? Because anything can be interpreted.
And if a politician is offended, offense is something that happens internally, and they can weaponize this to say, well, I'm offended by another politician. Charge him with a crime. If he's charged with a crime and convicted, now he can no longer hold opposition status within a lot of countries. So this is why freedom of speech is such a slippery slope. And you really have to be a free speech absolutist, because if you're not, you're going to end up with massive authoritarian rule. And power is going to consolidate itself more and more and more so with the elites.
That reputation. And it's even more ludicrous when it comes to stuff like posting a poop emoji next to a politician's name, and you will be fined 600 euros if you're lucky. You call a politician fat and suddenly you have to pay 9,000 euros? It sounds insane to anybody outside of Germany, but in Germany, this is a well-established culture now, apparently. The So Done company works together with these politicians, scans, with the help of AI, hundreds of thousands of posts per month, and then files all these reports against individual people, and this can eventually lead to, if you're not so lucky, a house raid. So we have fact-checking facilities, we have reporting facilities, we have companies that are helping report people to these facilities, we have NGOs influencing the media. I wish the only problem we have were just the legacy media. But the biggest problem is that we don't have the option to establish alternative media that can possibly outcompete the legacy media that are influenced by these NGOs.
Same as in Canada.
Yeah, take this as a forewarning if you live in the United States. I mean, remember what happened under Biden with him colluding behind the scenes with Twitter, with Facebook, with Google to censor. They wanted certain messages and people off the internet, and they got that. But in places like Germany, the EU, Canada, it is far worse. And I mean, we often talk about the MAID program, which is something completely different. But citizens in the United States specifically should pay attention to all these other Western countries, because what's happening there could easily happen in the United States, especially after the 2028 election.
And there are already, at least in the US, certain mechanisms to go after people that do affect you with their free speech. For example, defamation or suing, etc. There is a mechanism to kind of get a hold of it, but I also don't know if, or don't think that politicians should have the same allowance, because they're putting themselves out there and supposedly representing the people. They're there as like a function for and of the public. But if they're not doing that, then you should, within a democratic society, be able to criticize them and to use your speech to go against them if they're going against freedoms or rights or whatever of the people.
These politicians are going to have to stand up to people like Vladimir Putin, like Xi Jinping. They're going to be in dynamic meetings with people like Donald Trump. And if they can't handle hate speech, how are they going to handle these people that have entire militaries behind them?
And again, in my opinion, and we've said it before over and over again, hate speech doesn't exist. Hate speech is not a thing, and it is a changeable and movable thing where anybody can define what hate means, because there is no codified actual certain definition in any of these countries. And I know it's specifically in Canada because we reported quite a bit on this a few years ago on our now Spanish channel. So I know that they have no idea what they're even planning to, or how they're even planning to implement it, and they're to do it in a way that benefits them. But then what happens when the other side gets in or holds power and is able to use those same laws to go against you? So that's something people never think about when they think about hate speech, is that it is and will be a mechanism that can be used to be weaponized against opposition, against people that you don't that are uncomfortable for society or that are uncomfortable for you and the power you hold. Right now here in Mexico, they're doing it through, feminism, essentially. So protecting women. Anything that goes against female politicians, for example, can be used as and be seen as hate speech, not the same for men. And we've also seen some men allege that they are women now just so they can hold office because there's so many more protections for female politicians than men. And those laws have also been applied against women themselves. Women that have criticized female politicians have had to publicly apologize and then go to classes on misogyny because they criticized or they said that a female politician was involved in corruption. And then they couldn't say that because that's political gender violence, but it's only gender violence against women, or children, and there's multiple ways it can be weaponized and mechanized to take down the opposition and silence those who might or probably are speaking the truth.
There's already repercussions if words become violence, if people are misquoted or journalistic outlets misreport about politicians, you can sue. We've seen this happen with Donald Trump, but they absolutely love free speech in 2016 when they were running against Donald Trump, and they used it all the way up until now. But now, all of a sudden, they realize it's not just Donald Trump they're losing to. They're losing election after election after election worldwide, and they're trying to stop the bleeding desperately. They're trying to strip the freedoms from the population. That freedom is free speech, and they're trying to consolidate the power within the hands of the elite politicians that want a completely different outcome than what their citizens want.
But also even within the UK, we are seeing that Donald Trump is suing the BBC for blatantly lying, and they are alleging now they were alleging free speech on why they did it and why they edited that clip of him telling people not to go to the Capitol, but editing it so it seemed like he was telling them to go. And he's suing because of the lies that the BBC perpetrated. BBC, once again, is also, mostly governmental propaganda.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see now that they are going against free speech, but they're also claiming free speech when it is convenient to them.
It just seems like we're going back to a time where we're bringing blasphemy laws in and we're calling it hate speech. Hate speech and blasphemy laws are very similar, and they're creating specialty classes in order to get these hate speech laws passed. We make a specialty class. If you speak against that specialty class, then we're going to invoke hate speech laws that we're going to legislate. Also, now they're trying to invoke specialty subjects, not just specialty classes, but specialty subjects you can't talk against. And they're just going to broaden that out until you can't speak about anything. And we're going to literally be living in 1984 before we know it.
And then the next story also grazes Elon Musk, but it's not related to this bit, at least. Oh, hold on. Oh, no. My button's not working. Hold on.
Did you restart the show?
No.
Because
what?
Oh, okay, never mind.
Well, how do I go to the next story if I can't?
Did
Did it disconnect? Hold on. You talk. I'm going to try to fix it.
Okay, the next story is going to be pretty interesting because it's about Elon Musk and one of his baby's mothers. Ashley Sinclair. He just seems to have bad selection. He already had one of his kids trans. It looks like she's wanting to trans his 1-year-old now. He's looking to seek full custody. So it's going to be very interesting kind of what happens there. And
yes, it will be if I can make this work. Because I can't go to us.
Okay, try to...
I'm closing and opening things again.
You can't. You should never have closed that.
Why not?
You have to open them in a certain order, and if they're already open, you're going to have to unplug it and replug it, not close it down.
Okay.
No, it's too late now because now the other program has precedence over the one. That's why I made you the paper that literally said the order you open the programs in.
Yeah, the other one is already open.
Okay,
so
try to switch, see what happens. Your OBS is going to have precedent over.
Is it the ATEM?
You can't do it now. You would literally have to shut down the stream, I believe. You're going to have to switch it manually then.
But how?
With the thing. You switch scenes.
No, I know, but I can't go to our... Because this is on the ATEM.
Okay, well, just switch scenes manually and do the best that you can.
Okay, but I can't show the screen.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so what do you want to do?
Should we turn off the ATEM and turn it back on?
Well, that's going to end the stream.
No, it'll just end the picture. The stream can keep going.
Okay.
We can say, hold on 5 minutes for 2 minutes.
Okay. Put the waiting screen on then, maybe.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. We're going to be back in just a moment. We're trying to
Technical
reprogram
difficulties.
some of the buttons here.
And we're back.
Okay. Sorry,
It should work
sorry
now.
for the delay there. It's been a while since we had a major technical difficulty kind of
Yes.
like that.
Before we used to have microphones not working and a bunch of other things.
I'm surprised 5 people stayed watching. So let's get right
thank
into the
you so
next story here.
If I find it.
Another technical difficulty. Good, you're great today, Nat.
I found it. But yes, from Timcast News, Elon Musk says he plans to seek full custody of his 1-year-old son after
Oh,
Ashley
and
St. Clair.
did you run the personality politics?
No.
Oh, you should have.
Okay.
That's okay.
Apologized for past remarks about transgender issues and said she is now trying to privately learn from and advocate for the trans community.
Yeah, and he just his last girlfriend, wife, baby's mama was
Baby
Johnny Depp's.
Yeah.
What's her
Amber
name?
Heard.
Amber Heard.
Allegedly.
Amber Heard, and then he had Grimes. Of the 3 people, you would have thought Grimes was the worst of the 3, and she ends up being the best of the 3 people that she ends up turning conservative after almost. So, but he already did have one child that was trans, and this is what turned him to the right. This was what made him a huge free speech advocate, and this is kind of what brought him down the trail of blackpilling him or red pilling him. So if this happens to him again, he's going to be even more committed.
And what's interesting is Ashley St. Clair is, I guess the youth calls him an e-girl. But that was seemingly wanting to be on the, conservative influencer space, but then has slowly, as many other have too, turned towards more feminism and more the convenient side of the arguments whenever it's convenient for her. For example, here somebody told, and this is a comment that made Elon Musk say that he might want to take full custody of his 1-year-old kid. Someone said, you've previously engaged in blatant transphobia. How do you feel about trans people in the wake of noticing how the far right truly is? And surprisingly or unsurprisingly, she replied, I feel immense guilt for my role and even more guilt that things I have said in the past may have caused my son's sister more pain. So Elon Musk's other son. I don't know how to make amends for many of these things, but I have been trying incredibly hard privately to learn and advocate for those within the trans community that I've hurt. I also haven't said much on this because I've gone back and forth over whether my voice would be helpful on the issue, since it will be framed as disingenuous or turning just because I'm scorned.
We have to remember this is about her possibly transing her 1-year-old. Her 1-year-old.
I do think maybe Elon made a bit of a stretch, but
okay. Well, I'm going to say this: if this does happen and they do go to court over this, Elon Musk actually has enough money to set a precedent, because right now the courts are kind of set up the opposite way. They'll typically give custody to the mother because the father's not respecting the pronouns. We actually knew somebody like this in Canada who was generally a good father, but had the kid taken away because he wouldn't respect the pronouns.
Mm-hmm. And he was thrown in jail for disrespecting a court order that was mandating him to, number one, not speak to the press, but number two, also to use the incorrect pronouns for his daughter.
Well, it seems to be very common that women after divorces are weaponizing their children through...
Even before divorce.
Yeah, through transing the children. I mean, I'm just going to say it. There's so many stories like this that come up, and the court system is really stacked against men in this particular case.
Mm-hmm. But moving on to another tech company that is doing something unsurprising. But if you have been following Apple's journey with AI specifically, you may have known, or if you're an Apple user yourself, that Siri was never up to par with the rest and that Apple focused on things that it shouldn't have been focusing if they wanted to actually become a powerful force within the AI space, but they have failed to do so and continue to both indebt themselves and not show results. And now, from CNBC, Apple picks Google's Gemini to run AI-powered Siri coming this year. All the promises they made regarding Siri for the past 1.5 to 2 years have not materialized. Siri still does not work and had been relying partially on a ChatGPT-ish infrastructure and framework, but now they're going to Google.
Apple just keeps seemingly falling farther and farther behind. I personally use Apple computers because I'm pretty computer illiterate and they just work. That being said, a lot of their manufacturing is connected to China. They're having to transfer that manufacturing. They're not able to, I think, keep up with the tech curve, especially when it's coming to AI right now. I'm not liking the future of Apple, and that's a shame because I'm not going back to Windows. I used to use Windows and it was completely unfunctional, at least for me, because I'm not very computer literate. But it seems like even the new devices that are coming out with Apple, they're supposed to have the folding phone, and that thing is going to cost an arm and a leg, $2,400.
That's still a rumor, but
$2,400 is the rumor for that.
But I don't think they're going that way. They can barely.
How much do you want to bet?
I don't bet.
How much do you want to bet?
I don't bet.
Okay, I didn't think so.
Apple is, but that rumor is pretty far-fetched given the path they're on and the lack of technology
I don't
they've
think
been having
I don't
lately.
think you keep up with Apple rumors.
Oh, I do.
Okay, we'll see.
Apple is Apple is teaming up with Google to use Gemini models for an AI-powered Siri. Reports swirled in August that Apple was in early talks with the search giant to use custom Gemini model to power a new iteration of Siri. Apple has mostly stayed out of the AI frenzy because it left it behind. That swept Wall Street since OpenAI's ChatGPT. And I will say what is worrying about this, or worrying to me at least, is that we know, and it has been proven over and over again, that specifically Google's Gemini, but also ChatGPT, but Google's Gemini has a big bias towards a certain ideology, towards the left, and towards not showing you are doing things or that you ask, or enhancing search results, or enhancing how it answers to comply to a specific narrative and ideology.
Apple tends to have that ideology as well. So maybe if they outsource that, they can have plausible deniability when working with the Trump administration. So maybe they're outsourcing it now and working behind the scenes for creating their own AI, because if they're not, they're going to fall further and further and further behind. Okay, let's go into the last story here in this section.
Yes, and because it's personality politics, I forgot to press the thing to show personality politics. But yesterday was the Golden Globes, and apparently now there's a whole outrage. And I kind of picked this story just so you can talk about the movie that pertains to Leo DiCaprio. From Dom Lucre, Hollywood actor Leonardo DiCaprio is going viral after foreign started accusing him of acting gay at the Golden Globe Awards. And this is what he did. I don't know if there's sound.
That's ridiculous. I haven't seen that clip yet. She was talking about the clip. I don't think it was anything like he made it out to be. I had just watched the one battle after another. I waited till it came on streaming because I did not want to support the movie in theaters, because I thought it was a propaganda piece, and that it was a very well-made propaganda piece. And I'm sure the left is absolutely,
well, they got a bunch of awards at the Golden Globes.
Not only getting awards, but with all the riots and demonstrations that are happening, the people on the ground must absolutely love that movie.
Well, people at the Golden Globes were wearing, like, what was her name? Rachel Good? No.
Yeah.
Is it Rachel?
I believe so.
Okay, well, the girl that got ended by ICE, by shooting it with ICE, from ICE, they were all wearing pins, and they were all being very supportive of this person. It's not Rachel. But not unsurprisingly, then and thereafter, one battle after another, which is a movie that the guy went to go see, but I didn't. Well, not went to go see. Was watching while I was trying to edit a video for release tomorrow for this channel. I was passively watching it in the background, so he'll know more about the actual movie, but I do know the broad strokes of what it is about, and unsurprisingly, especially right now with the moment that is being lived in the US and throughout Western and non-Western nations, I am not... Once I'm going to say surprised again. I'm not surprised that it got so many awards and so much attention at the Golden Globes, and now moving into award season, I think it's going to continue to ramp up.
Well, I think they pumped a lot of money into that movie, a lot of promotion into the movie, and it absolutely flopped because half of America ain't buying into that crap anymore. That being said, it was well filmed, it was well acted, it was very shallow when it came to the villains. Conservatism in general and white men were the villains in the movie, and they were very explicit about that. That being said, Benicio del Toro was fantastic in the movie, and they probably wanted to make a spin-off with him, but I don't think that's going to fly anymore. And as far as the movie goes, yes, it was a good movie, but it was a lot of propaganda, and I'm glad that it did flop in the way that it did. And I'm glad I didn't go to the movies to watch it because I suspected it was propaganda. I watched it on streaming. We already had HBO Max, so that was free for us to watch.
Canceled it. Let us know if you watched it and what you thought about it. But I am going to now go read all your comments. Thank you so much for leaving them. Again, we do read all the comments at the end of each section. So let us know what you think about what we're saying, and then we'll
be going into religion is the next section. We only have 2 stories in that section, but we'll read comments now.
Yes. Nan, hello, Nan. Nan says, hey guys, hope you're all doing well. I will be listening while I cook and get ready to go to nephew's basketball or baseball.
Oh,
game.
wait, what are you cooking today?
So I don't know which one. Yeah, what are you cooking today? And says cheers to a great show. Thank you so much, and cheers to
and thank you for everybody that has really been supporting the show. I know it's been slow growth for this channel. We do have a Spanish channel that grew a lot faster. I feel we pick very controversial topics, and we're constantly up on the daily news, and we really don't hold back on who we put in the cover and stuff like that. So I have a feeling
YouTube doesn't like us too much, I don't think. Trent also says, Trent Briggs says, Candace is boring tonight.
Yeah,
I started
watching it, and I watched about half an hour, and then I was like, I can't even watch this anymore.
Neo, hello Neo. Neo says that lady Ashley just wants more money, a typical gold digger.
Yeah, it was. I thought it was fantastic the way Musk did handle her in the beginning. She wanted an absorbent amount of money. Musk had offered her millions in order to have the baby, which it's rumored she went to a sperm bank for, and that's how they ended up having the baby. But it was more than fair and more than generous. And she said, no, I want more. And they said, okay, you're not going to have anything. And then she ended up coming to a deal, it looks like. But part of that deal, I think she feels jaded by the whole situation. And now this is why she's on every single subject. She seems to be going against Musk.
And she recently, which we played a little bit of, had an interview with Trigonometry when they were in the US. And I guess it's pretty enlightening where her positions stand, or if she has any positions at all, which again, if you don't have a solid foundation for your morals and values and what you believe in and your statements and your opinions, then you're going to flip-flop all over the place. We're seeing it with Megyn Kelly. We're seeing it with MTG. Sorry if anybody likes Marjorie Taylor Greene. Candace, of course. Ashley St. Clair. Pearl. I don't like all women. I don't like her much.
That you actually brought that up. I watched World War Debate, which I had actually promoted on the show. It was Andrew Wilson's live debate event, which he helped organize, and I was really psyched about it. I absolutely love debate. They had connections with big debaters, so I thought they would bring the best in. It was an absolute flop. I was completely disappointed in it. The big show was, or the big debate was, ended up being Pearl Davis and Anna Kasparian. Anna Kasparian absolutely won the debate. The audience was on Pearl Davis's side. That being said, Pearl Davis just got stuck and went silent a few times in there. The audio was bad on the one of the previous debates. It didn't work as a live event. It works much better as something online because your major audience is going to be online for something like that as well. So I think having an event that's maybe not live, done virtually or online would be the best, especially if you could have really good debaters. They ended up paying the debaters quite a bit, but they should have got just higher quality debaters or something, or somebody that had more name value. Right now, Nick Fuentes is really hot and Andrew Wilson does have a connection with him. He could have got him in there. No matter who they put him up against, it would have brought eyeballs onto the event.
I think Experian would have been interesting with Nick Fuentes.
Oh, that would have, yeah, they already had an Experian. So,
but because the big debate for that one, and we even talked about it months ago, was Candace Owens versus Steven Crowder. Steven Crowder actually said, well, I'll donate my fee, so she would get $60K to do the appearance, and she didn't want to.
There were big rumors, and they did have a great event space. I'm sure for the people that were there live, it was probably good, but they even had problems selling tickets at the end, and whoever was watching it online, it was a 7-hour live stream. They should have cut it up into segments that would be more palatable for general audiences. I think maybe they'll still do that. That being said, I hope people are honest about this. I like Andrew Wilson. I like The Crucible. That being said, hopefully people are honest with him and he can make a better event going forward, and they don't put money
and learn from it.
Yeah, and they don't put money in the wrong places, because I think debate is going to be huge, especially come 2028.
Trembrig says people don't go to movies anymore. And as at least myself, someone that worked in the film industry, wanted to make films initially. That is part of why we got into all of this and wanting to make documentaries, maybe still eventually one day. I like, and in Mexico, we see it a lot more, that people do go. It is still a family event. It is still everybody goes together. And I do think it is important to watch movies in the context of a theater, because it is a very different experience. And I am sad that it has gone away, especially after the bad times of 2020, but also the encouragement of just streaming, which takes away from a communal experience, which we're losing more and more each day.
Well, it's not just theaters. The movie industry in general is just making crap movies.
And that's why.
Like, we came from Canada. The movie theaters absolutely died in Canada after the bad times of 2020, like you said. But when we came down here to Mexico, I was very surprised. They have normal movie tickets that are fairly cheap for regular audiences, and then they have VIP theaters that are just absolutely amazing.
And they're not exorbitant prices like in the US, because I know they have VIP. Because in Canada, it's very rare that they have them, at least near Vancouver. But it is because it's not super, super expensive that people do still use that as well. But I mean, you and I still go to movie theaters, but I have friends and people I know that still also just regularly go to watch movies at the theater.
Yeah, but
there's nothing to watch.
I am noticing my attention span getting shorter, or it has to be a topic of general interest. Like, I'll watch a 6-hour debate, no problem. But I tried throwing on some movies last week, and I threw on 3 movies in a row, got 20 minutes in, and I turned it off.
But that's also because we did see the great DEI-ification of screenwriters, TV writers, movie writers, and just writers' room in general, and of the industry in general. So the merit and the actual being able to produce something that people are interested in is completely gone.
Well, I had turned off 3 movies in a row. I literally thought I was going to turn off one battle after another because it was over 3 hours, and I'm like, this is going to be propaganda. It was propaganda, but it was well enough made that I was actually able to sit through the whole thing. So
the last movie that held my attention was The Substance. And a lot of people didn't like it, but
you kept trying to get me to watch it.
Even though it was a feminist power trip, I did like it. Non says making refried because we asked what they were cooking. It says making refried pinto beans and tasty rice with some slow cooked pork. We do our best to make everything from scratch. I love your show. You two are an awesome team. Thank you so much.
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah,
and we got a bunch of beans.
I don't cook anymore.
We have a bunch of beans and rice in a bin that in case there's an earthquake or something here in Mexico City, which is common, that we have emergency supplies. But man, beans take a long time to cook from scratch. So you really have to be committed. He must be a good cook.
Yes, because I don't have the patience. And eventually we'll get a slow cooker that is also, what are those called in English?
God.
Olla presión, but I don't know how to say it in English. The pressure cooker. Okay. Because it's a lot easier to make rice in that. There, although I can make rice without a pressure cooker.
Okay.
Which is
of course.
I used to cook quite a bit. No, but some people it's harder.
Okay.
I used to cook a lot, but now I don't. I used to cook your lunch every day.
Yeah, used to.
Yeah, like a good housewife. Trent says Anna flip flops. Yeah, of course they all flip flop.
Yeah. God, who was it?
But she is more open than she used to be, and I think living in LA taught her.
She's more. They flip flop, but at least she stays consistent on a few issues after the flop. So she's bearable to listen to now, and I'll actually listen to her because I actually think when she has opinions that I don't agree with, which are many, I think she actually believes in those opinions, and she's not just a leftist commentator. She used to be radically left with Cenk as well, and I didn't think they actually really believed those opinions.
And Trent also says, true, most Netflix movies are pretty bad, yes. Especially the rom-coms. I'm on a crusade to bring good rom-coms back. Rom-coms that women, and just women, will go to or will drag their husbands to go watch. But there's been none also, and that is sad. Or comedy movies in general, but most comedy was also kind of romantic comedy. And I miss that.
I used to have a pop culture show on the alternate days, so I think it was Tuesdays and Thursdays. Yeah. But man, movies just got so bad. It was like... it was painful just to keep up on movie news and just to see the destruction of what has happened to the movie industry, the streaming industry in general.
Especially coming and having worked in it.
Yeah.
Trent Briggs says, Crockpot, thank you. And now I'm reading the RUMBLE comments, but...
and then we'll go to religion is the
religion.
next section.
But we can't make the pop-up on screen. I'm sorry, but it's Ethel. Thank you so much, Ethel, for being here. Says, make free speech great again. Yes. And Ethel also says, viewers, go to Rumble if you don't want CommuTube to censor and hide your comments without you knowing it. It happens more often than you notice. It happens a lot on my Spanish show.
Thank you to Ethel for always leaving comments on RUMBLE. Yes. I know we can't bring them up on the screen, but I'm
working on it.
I really do like that platform because it has been a free speech platform from the beginning. The interface is a bit annoying, especially for people that are making content, but even if you're trying to search it. That being said, especially what's happening to Elon right now, and it's going to come up throughout the show when we go to different regions. They're really trying to ban X. The global West has a war on free speech right now. So platforms like RUMBLE, I think, are crucially important.
Ethel also says, make fat politicians slim enough to be looking good in bikinis great again. That acronym would be very long, but yes. Ethel also says, Guy, there's no true absolutism in free speech. Suppose someone influential spreads nasty false information about you. Would you tolerate it? You shouldn't, but the exchange of ideas should be unrestrained. But that's what I was saying when there's mechanisms to already try to combat that. Yes, if the person is a lot more powerful, well, then you don't have much recourse, I guess. Although if you do win a defamation lawsuit against someone really rich, you get a lot of money. But the mechanism's already there. And I don't think giving up on absolute free speech is worth it enough just in case you were someday to be defamed by somebody.
Well, no, it's actually now, if we're talking about the context of the United States here, actually somebody that has a lot of money is much more susceptible to somebody that doesn't have money, because somebody that doesn't have money, a lawyer will take the case pro bono if they think it's strong, and then take half of the award if they win the case, and it's free if they don't take the case. So a lot of people that do actually have outsized power or a money advantage typically complain. They usually just settle out of court because they don't want to have to pay their lawyers.
Ethel also says that woman in spectacles that we watched in the UK Parliament is on a crusade against X because she's afraid that her actual NUDES would leak out and disgust everyone. Probably.
Well, it's funny how they're going directly after X, and all the claims they're making against X, they're not making against these other platforms, and they're trying not to go after these platforms like Blue Sky. The Australian government is distinctively said, Blue Sky's okay, but we're going after X, and they're making claims that both platforms actually do. And X does its best to take away things that are not in the, not law of X, but the terms of conditions.
Yeah, policy.
Terms and conditions, yes. Yeah. So, because I gather news every 15 minutes to 30 minutes daily for this show. And yeah, I see things come up there that I don't like, but within an hour, I'd say it's usually taken down a lot of the time. And then if it is reposted, it's reposted by somebody else. So they are doing the best they can. You can't expect 100% censorship or compliance on terms of service right away because they are a news site.
Okay. Ethel also says, these are all from Ethel. Guy and Nat disagree on so many things that we will soon witness cancellation of the show. We'd have to cancel our marriage as well. So it would be pretty difficult, but no. I think, and this is how we talk to each other about everything all the time. And I think part of the greatness of our relationship is that healthy debate and knowing that it's never actually like ending.
Well, and what Nat's not telling you here is that we had dinner last night with some liberal friends, and she was trying to hold her tongue because we just wanted to have a
I'm
nice
really
dinner,
bad at
not talk politics. And
not
she
saying
just
it.
came out and said, "I'm a free speech absolutist." She went off and then she went into the kitchen to wash dishes so she didn't have to talk. So I was surprised when I said today on the show, "Well, I'm a free speech absolutist," and she's
Well, no, I
like,
wanted to try to give the other side,
Okay.
or like the side that I would understand. But yeah, we were talking about hate speech last night with liberal friends, and they were very for censoring speech. And I said I'm a free speech absolutist, and if somebody gets offended, then it's the offended person's fault. It's not the one that creates something that it may or may not be offensive, and you can never police that.
well, and I have the same view as that, but I was nice at the dinner table and I just put it in.
But at some point, I just couldn't hold.
I put it in more in academic terms, asking questions, not being rude. So
I wasn't rude. I just kind of blurted it out after a while where I could not hold back.
it was rude.
Anyway, it was not rude. Ethel says, "Choreography, make choreography great again." I used to be a dancer. Funnily enough, I did ballet and other types of dance as well for a year, like
Not
20 years.
Those kinds of dance.
No, not that kind of professional and competitive dancing, ballet mostly. Ethel says, "I've heard that Iran is efficiently banning Starlink's internet."
Yeah, Starlink is all over the country, and this is what's going to make it so interesting if these Western countries continue to try to ban X and Elon Musk distributes this phone and it becomes huge on the black market in Iran, in China, in Russia, in the EU, in the UK. I mean, it will be really the battle for free speech, and Elon Musk will be the face of that. He will gain so much global trust if he does that. Governments and elites will absolutely hate him. Well, they already do. So,
Hold on. Ethel says, "In Canada, it's not as bad as in Germany yet. While Bill C9 has not been fully adopted, people can say things that are unimaginable in Germany. In Canada, you can still post like CHUD, the builder."
yeah, Canada's not quite as bad, but all the legislation is ready and all the sub-legislation, if the main legislation can ever get passed, is ready. The problem is Carney does fear Trump, and Trump is keeping him in line somewhat. That's why of the countries that came together, they were agreeing to all ban X at the same time, so Trump and Elon Musk wouldn't be able to have much pushback. Carney was the first one to kind of say publicly that he wasn't going to do it. Same thing is happening here in Mexico. Trump is having a good effect on the far left president here. He's pushing her back towards the middle, which I kind of don't like because a lot of moderates will probably view her in a better light than they normally would if she was able to go off on her ideological tangents.
Ethel also says, "OMG, guy, how do you let women operate software? Should they not be in the kitchen?" Just joking, that testing your tolerance for freedom of speech. Again, last night I did actually, eventually, because I didn't want to offend anybody, went to go wash dishes in the kitchen because I could not hold my tongue. But it's funny because, again, I am the one that mostly edits and deals with computers and social medias and all the things that we are and have to continue to do. He is more the one that builds sets and does the cameras and
gather the stories.
Yes.
Which he just
because I usually edit. I'm editing usually while
she completely disrespects. She thinks I just sit there gathering stories. It's literally every 15 minutes to half an hour. I got to be on there gathering them to get an idea of what's.
Okay, I edit for hours on end.
Oh, okay. Go do some dishes. Go do some dishes.
And do research for edited videos too. Ethel says, "Apple should have chosen DeepSeek instead of Gemini to support their favorite Chinese counterparts." Yeah. Ethel also says,
but I will say this about DeepSeek and China: they're going a completely different direction, and
I don't trust them.
We'll see what kind of happens with it. But economically, it may be the better model. There's a bubble getting created in the American AI sector, and it's going to be interesting what does happen to China on the path that they took, because they took a much leaner path that was much less investment. The AI is a little bit slower, but it's still fantastic. So,
and Ethel, last comment from Ethel says, "Never flip flop. The best way is to hate everyone indiscriminately.
Yeah, that's
you're
what I
never
always say.
wrong." Kind of like me. And Sean, hello, Sean. Sean says, "Make a guy lunch. He looks thin."
Yeah.
Oh, he started training again.
Well,
That's
I just started jiu-jitsu again. Was my second class, and it is absolutely wiping me out. I actually used to teach jiu-jitsu, but I haven't trained it in 10 years because I had a genetic back issue that popped up in my late 30s. And man, jujitsu was always my passion. It just makes me feel good. Nat was actually saying the other day, because I came home after training and I was so happy. And it's the one thing that makes me ecstatic. And she goes,
Not me.
She says to me, well, I hate when you're so happy. I wish you'd just go back to being mad again.
Because he was all bouncing around, and I was like,
I get such
"Stop
an
it,"
endorphin
because I
rush
was
from it.
working and I was trying to do things.
But
And he was
I got on new medication for my back, so hopefully that's going to fix the problem. I'm really testing my back right now with jujitsu. If it holds up, I'm going to be absolutely ecstatic. I did.
Yeah, you used to teach and train a lot.
Yeah, I used to
for
train
years.
5-6 hours a day, but I tried it a few months ago and it just did not hold up.
No, not yet. Sean says famous people are much harder to defame under New York Times standard, New York Times NYB Sullivan. Yeah, but still.
Okay, and let's go into the next section.
But there
here.
is that mechanism at least.
Yeah.
Here in Mexico, it is pretty impossible. But let's move on to religion. Hold on, where am I? There.
Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God.
Okay, and moving to religion from Conor McGregor, funnily enough. Conor McGregor, who ended up not being able to, I think, run for president in Ireland.
It's still up in the air. He's still hovering in the hemisphere for politics in Ireland, which is good. And I think this is an absolutely amazing thing. If he does this, this will get worldwide recognition. This will put religion in the forefront in Ireland. And again, they're being overrun by migrants. So doing something like this will really consolidate a people in their heritage.
It says Conor McGregor, I have a dream to construct the largest statue of Jesus Christ in Ireland, a massive monument to our nation's faith. Armenia are currently constructing the world's largest, and it looks magnificent. Bravo, Armenia. Let's go, Ireland. And it kind of looks like the, what's it called in Sao Paulo?
Yeah.
The
one on the hill, the Jesus on the hill.
Yes.
That being
It has a
said,
name.
Conor McGregor has a substance and alcohol problem. That being said, he has a lot of connections within the business community to get something like this done. I think if there's a groundswelling of support, of organic support in Ireland, this would be huge. You could also start running political campaigns off of things like this, and I think it would be very successful. So I think it has add-on effects. It's just not a statue. They're really trying to mount a political movement, and I think Christians within the country of Ireland will be a huge base within that movement if it happens. They have to kind of rally those people around a project.
Catholics, maybe.
That would be a huge project. Yeah.
Catholics mainly, but that was a quick.
You corrected me once. That was enough.
I know. Sometimes it's not enough to do it once.
No, you kind of mumble it. Like, I don't know if he heard it. Let me correct him again.
Let's move on to health and Maha.
Okay.
But the greatest danger of all would be to do nothing.
And yes, make America healthy again. And again, at the beginning of the term, we were criticizing RFK Jr. quite a bit because it seemed like nothing was being done, but now there's quite a few things being done. Some positive, some negative as well. Eric Doherty says it's official. Secretary RFK Jr. confirms grocery stores in America that take food stamps will be required to double the amount of real whole foods in stock. This is the way.
Yeah, and this is fantastic.
And it has been a big subject of conversation.
Well, and he is really focused on food in a ton of different ways, whether it's GMO foods or it's changing food stamp policies or changing the food pyramid. I think food has the single biggest effect. I think it can outperform medication if you can change the dietary habits of Americans.
And most people, most type 2 diabetes can lose their diagnoses simply by changing diet. It's much more effective than pharmaceutical drugs or pharmaceutical interventions or medical interventions.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we're doing is Brooke Rollins is requiring that any facility, any store that accepts food stamps will have to double the amount of whole food that is now available to recipients. So that will change the marketplace around the world, around the country. We're going to make sure that every American family that affordable whole food is available to them at prices that they can afford.
Yeah. Secretary, this is so important. So many people are listening to you on every word, and I'm so...
And most people,
Yeah, and I just hope RFK keeps doing the job he's doing. We're going to see what happens in 2028, but he could be a dark horse candidate, especially if he tries to go independent or possibly even go back to the Democratic Party to try to reform it again. He tried to do it last time. They completely rejected him. But if their polling numbers stay the way it is, they may have to look like to a candidate like RFK. Man, I really hope he stays with the Conservative Party because he has done the most in this administration, I think.
But to me, it was egregious to see all those videos that were popping up when the discussion around food stamps was, and SNAP benefits, etc., was going around in the States. How many things they could actually get that were so, and how people were just taking full advantage of it. And of course, then thinking, well, that's where a lot of the issues will also with Medicaid, Medicare, etc., Obamacare are coming from almost the government incentivizing that and feeding into, because food can and is an addiction for a lot of people, and incentivizing that addiction through making it even easier for people to get their hands to get a hold of really, really unhealthy food items.
Yeah, I would like to see GMO corns, GMOs in general, genetic modified foods kind of go away. Instead of going away, though, there is a battle that needs to be fought, and I hope RFK does take it up. They're currently passing legislation to make it so you don't have to label a lot of these different modified meats and things of this nature. So, okay, let's go into...
we do have
we have
comments
some
that
comments.
kind of have to do with health as well, and you can speak to this. Nan says, my 27-year-old son has been training jiu-jitsu for several years. He also teaches kickboxing and Muay Thai. He loves it, and I feel very safe when he's around. I still
jiu-jitsu
feel
and Muay Thai go together because they're in all MMA gyms, so I used to do the same. It's fantastic. I'm glad he found that path. I know when I first started, when I was very young, I tried Taekwondo. It's completely unfunctional. It doesn't work, especially when you compare it to Muay Thai, which is similar because it's striking. But Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai are very functional, and good on him for going to those things. I would recommend more young men, and I have in my past tried to recommend people that don't work out to really try to go to MMA classes or Jiu-Jitsu classes, Muay Thai, because it gets you in shape, it helps you look good, but it gives you a functional skill that you can talk confidently to somebody, and you have the ability to defend yourself, your family, and your community, which are good things. So it has an add-on effect.
I tried it. I can't do it.
Yeah, we bought her two pink geese, which you're not
are
supposed to have.
It's the little suits that they wear.
Geese aren't supposed to be pink, but she wanted, so I said, fine, if you come to the class, we'll get you the pink geese. She wore them once and never came back. We still have the geese in the closet.
I don't like being bruised and hurt and be in pain more pain than I usually am after I do exercise. I'm a dancer, which is very painful as well, I might add. My knees
You also don't
crack a lot.
you also don't like to be assaulted.
That's it. But I have you. He's always by my side. And
because we do everything together. We do the YouTube videos. We do the editing.
We're married.
Everything together. So the other day I had to do something. Oh, I was going to jiu-jitsu. And then I said, on the way home, can you pick something up from the grocery store? She's like, well, I don't know. I haven't been to I haven't done anything by myself in forever.
I can. It just feels weird not having someone blabbering in my ear.
But
Get this, get that.
Barely, because you got the wrong steaks that day.
Nan says, I wrote a piece titled Means Testing is Cruel. But also, I mean, if it's related to food also...
What's means testing?
If I understand what they mean is... If like not being able to buy something or being able to buy something and the test of if you can or cannot.
Yeah, well, I think you should definitely regulate it because you want people to be healthy. And if you don't want to be regulated, then you're going to try to get off that system. Ultimately, you want people to get off that system. A reward benefit for getting off of that system is you can buy whatever you want when it's your own money. So I'm not so much against it because I grew up on food stamps when I was younger. A lot of my family members were also on food stamps, and I know the pitfalls of that. Sugars, candies, donuts, chips. That's what it's spent on. And people in the community, that's what they buy, and it's not healthy, and everybody is obese. Poor people are the most obese in this country, and it should be the opposite.
In that country, in this country. Ethel says, I wrote way too many comments. Sorry for hijacking your show. No, we like the comment. That's the whole point of doing a live show.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise, we would just pre-record and just release it. Ethel says, Americans need to get slimmer for once. How would fat people be able to conquer Canada and make it its 51st state? Well, Canadians are all starving because the food banks there have no food because now everybody has to go to the food banks because nobody can afford anything.
Canada's cold, so fat Americans would be hot. They
have blubber.
They'd have blubber, yeah.
Like, what are those called?
Walruses, I guess.
Walruses.
But there is a culture.
But now everybody, like they can, is on Ozempic, so now they're going to freeze to death.
Yeah, there was a cultural shift during my generation, I would say, or in the last maybe 20 years. The last 5 years have changed, I think. But there was a huge push into the, fitness and healthy eating for a long time. But it seems to be dying now with woke. Woke was killing fitness, killing healthy eating.
Well, they used to say that fitness and working out was white supremacy. Remember when they... And then far right. Ethel says to none, says at non-D3K, also you need to consider carrying a good old revolver and pepper spray for less lethal means. Also why revolver and not semi, it's because revolvers are classy.
Yeah, and I think I come from a country like Canada, but I know people from all around the world. We now live in Mexico, and we talked a lot about the First Amendment here.
And you lived in the States too.
Yeah, I lived in the States as well, but what I'm going to get into is the First Amendment is crucially important. That's kind of what we talked about on the show. But if you're not backed up with the Second Amendment, and it just baffles me how many citizens around the world are not aware of how important gun rights are. They're crucially important, not just for safety in your own home, but under the context of the Second Amendment. Under the Second Amendment, if the government gets way out of bounds, you have a way to protect the country.
Otherwise, only the bad guys have them.
Yeah. Also, like another thing, nobody's going to think about invading the United States because everybody's armed to the tooth. So it's going to be, it's like having a private military. You don't have to fund.
They might think of it, but it won't go well. We are talking about later on soldiers, Mexican army soldiers going to the border.
U.S. and
releasing
Mexico,
ridiculous videos about it.
The U.S. and Mexico are sending soldiers to the border as we speak. We have 2 stories on that in the Latin American section, but we'll get to it slowly.
And Non, I guess, replies to Ethel saying, I had my concealed permit in Oregon, I guess, for a couple of decades. I carried always and everywhere. There were no metal detectors 24/7.
Okay, let's get to the next story here.
You didn't want to acknowledge that?
Well, we can't read the comments when they're in private conversations.
Let's move on to remigration. I said it right this time.
Yeah.
The immigration policies in Europe are a disaster. You're destroying Europe. You're destroying the culture of Europe.
And we have 3 stories for this section. So
yes, and it is a subject that right now, of course, touches on multiple other subjects from like here from Marinov. Well, for those who've always wondered, where do Soros's professionally trained paid protesters come from? Places like this.
Well, and this touches on a couple of subjects. They're doing this kind of training in a church. This like
that too.
Has already started, as we said. People have been doing the same thing. This was an event at a church there on Monday night. People acted out immigration detainments, and the rest of the room practiced filming them and making noise to call attention to them. Has already started
as somebody that is trained in self-defense, what would you say of their tactics?
This is crazy. This stuff is going on. They're literally training protesters to go out. You see the demographic of people that were there. That's the same demographic that are in the street. We've talked on the show a lot about different churches. We come from Canada, and a lot of the churches are very woke and do preach government propaganda. And churches that don't teach government propaganda and kind of go their own path, the government will take away their nonprofit status. They get shut down. There's been over 200 church burnings in Canada. I'm not saying the government's doing that, but what I am saying, it's nobody's pushing back against it. You really have to be wary which church you walk into, especially if you walk into a church in a downtown environment that's a woke environment that's covered in rainbow flags that aren't Christian rainbow flags, but
like
are
in Vancouver.
woke rainbow flags. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go into the second story here.
Yes. From Basil the Great, who has all the British stories, says Harrison Pitt coins new term administrative Brits. How do you say that word?
Administrative Brits.
Administrative Brits.
Admin. You can just
Admin,
say,
okay.
yeah.
Admin Brits aren't real Brits. They may have been given a passport. They're British by admin only. They're no more British than it could be a woman or a Napoleon. If we can make them British, then we can unmake them British too.
Yeah, and I think this is
It's a big conversation that's going on around Britain right now as well. And
Yeah.
heritage Brits, or they call themselves native Brits, which infuriates everybody else in the
well,
Commonwealth.
and Canada is trying to bring their population up to 100 million. They're currently at 40 million. The majority of the country is going to be admin Canadians pretty soon.
I mean, technically, I would be an admin Canadian.
Yeah.
That's why I think the term administrative Britishness is a very good one, because it draws attention to the status of, I can't even say his name. Is that what's he called again?
It's Alaa Abdel Fattah.
Alaa Abdel Fattah's status as British is now an administrative fact, but it is not a brute fact in my opinion, and it can never be a brute fact any more than I can be a woman or any more than I can be Napoleon. I could maybe get my name changed to Napoleon Bonaparte by deed poll. I can maybe get we know that in the past people have been able to get their sex changed, but that doesn't change any of the underlying brute facts, and nor should it in this case. We should be consistent in rejecting voluntarist pieties, the idea that we make reality rather than having to negotiate with reality, which is basically the cardinal flaw in the kind of voluntarist ethos that suffuses late modernity on everything from considerations of nationality to considerations of sex. We've got quite good at resisting them in the realm of gender and sex, but we need to get better at resisting them in the realm of nationhood and belonging. But crucially as well, and this is something we should get to, another somewhat awkward thing about social facts as opposed to brute facts is that we can change them. And if we can change them, we can reverse them.
Absolutely.
So if Al-Fati can be made administratively British, he can have his status as an administrative Brit unmade as well. And I believe that in the interest of the British people who deserve to go on existing as a brute fact, he should have that citizenship taken away from him. He should be denaturalized and he should be deported.
Okay, yeah, and this is an interesting conversation that's coming up. And we currently live in Mexico. I came from Canada. And
I am from Mexico.
If I apply for Mexican citizenship or to be a resident here, if I become a resident, does that make me Mexican by heritage? No, not really.
No.
That's the
by
thing.
heritage, no. By nationality, kind of.
By immigration, but I would never be considered by the population here to be a real Mexican.
No.
But that's the thing. In America or in Canada,
Learn Spanish.
if you say the same thing, that, just because somebody immigrates to America, they're not a real American. That's extremely racist in the context of a lot of Americans or a lot of Canadians. But in Mexico, in Japan, in a lot of other countries, nobody would ever think if you immigrate to Mexico, you're now a Mexican.
Yeah, I mean, on paper you are, but
yeah.
But that is something that is like with this whole conversation, especially in Britain and with heritage Americans and heritage Brits and administrative Brits, etc. That is a question that, funnily enough, I've addressed on the other side, as someone from a receiving country, I guess, as a Mexican. It's something that I've talked about a lot in my Spanish channel, where something that really bothers me is, for example, Mexican Americans that are always trying to, or Irish Americans, or whatever Americans that are always trying to, they're like 1/25 Irish, and they just say they're Irish or just say they're Mexican because they don't want to be considered Americans. And I always notice this, even in Canada, people would always put forth whatever else they were other than American. And that always bothered me because I've always been I'm Mexican. At the same time, I see these Mexican Americans that grew up in the US that never set foot in Mexico. They wouldn't survive 2 minutes in Mexico because and when they've tried to come here and make videos, they can't stand it. They get sick. They hate that it's so dirty and unsafe, etc. So for me, all of those, I wouldn't consider them Mexicans because they've never lived in Mexico, had the experiences that Mexicans have had since they were little, and that instill that culture in you. Yes, your abuela, and I hate that they call them, oh, my abuela. It's like, no, it's your grandmother. You're American. Shut up. But when they're all like, oh, my abuela taught me this, my abuela taught me that, it's like, no, yeah, they may have taught you some of it, but you didn't experience and soak up like a sponge the whole experience of being Mexican. So don't call yourself Mexican if when you do go to Mexico, you don't fit in either. So that is also a question that roams in my mind with the whole, then what are they? If they don't want to admit they're American, they always want to say they're Mexican, but when they're Mexican, they don't want to take it either, then what are those kinds of people that are in limbo?
Well, when you don't adopt the identity of the country, I mean, I remember when I would grow up, immigration, it wasn't mass flooding of immigration. People came in at a steady and reasonable rate, and they were expected to adopt the culture of the country. And when that happened, that they wanted to be American, they were proud of being American, or they wanted to be Canadian, or they were proud of the country. That's no longer happening. It's a mass influx, a takeover, almost an invasion, especially in Europe.
But there's still a lot of people that say, "Oh, I'm Irish American, I'm Italian American." No, you're just American. If you and your parents have lived there and were born there, then you're American. Just stop trying to make yourself a plus or an extra. It's like an extra they want to put on themselves because they don't want to acknowledge that they're just American.
I would disagree.
Why?
Language is important. So when somebody says, I'm Irish American, if they immigrated directly from Ireland and now they're an American citizen, they would be Irish American.
No, yes.
But their kids, I would say, are American.
But these
but
are like people who's like people came over on the Mayflower and they keep saying, "Oh, I'm this American, I'm that American."
Well, I think it was interesting what he was saying in the last clip, an administrative UK citizen.
That would be like a first generation.
Yeah, and I would say having a label for a first generation individual is important.
Yeah, that's fine. But again, I'm talking about the kids or the families. I have a lot of US friends that will always say, "Oh, I'm Italian American," and it's like, no, you were born in Michigan and you've lived there your whole life. You have no connection to Italy other than your nonna sometimes makes pasta.
Well, yeah, at that point you would say my mom's Italian or my grandmother's Mexican or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
I'm American.
Yeah, but they don't want to say I'm American.
Well, these countries aren't. These cultures these countries are losing their identity, and that's exactly what's they're trying to do. The governments of these countries in the UK, in the EU, and in Canada, Donald Trump is trying to bring back a firm identity for the United States. We have a story later where he just brought back English as the official language and is taking Spanish off of government documents. It's not a racist thing to do. He's trying to bring back an identity for the country, because if they lose that identity, it's number one, hard to get people to fight for the country or to take pride in their country and to build a future for the country. And that's what he wants. And
then things like this happen. We continue to see protests in Minneapolis, in Minnesota, all over the place, really, New York, Los Angeles as well. And of different kinds.
And we have a couple clips today. This one's in this section, but we have another one later in another section that's very similar. But if you have a conservative protest or a general conservative protest, when there's a reporter there trying to ask questions, people are generally respectful. This is commonplace at these woke liberal protests.
From Real America's Voice, reporter gets heckled. This is the state of the U.S. right now. Real America's Voice, Dave Zier getting harassed as he's trying to be respectful.
Okay, you can play the clip.
This is what we're dealing with on the ground, all over. That's right. Actually, I'm very respectful, and you're not respectful at all anyway. I just want to ask, do you believe in illegal immigration? Do you think U.S. taxpayers should be funding housing for illegal and medical care?
Smart man. He is so intelligent. This man, he's got nothing to say. He's got nothing to say.
I got a lot to say.
They're all crazy and old.
Or young and...
I'm very respectful. Yeah. This is the mentality. This is the state of the United States right now. This is what's going on here in this country.
And what we're seeing here is you're not going to win anybody over to your side, especially when you're acting like that. The reporter there, whether he was independent or not independent, you're definitely going to win more people over like that. But this is also why I think debate is going to become so important as we get closer to the 2028 election, because people actually want to see the views, or the moderates do. You might win a radical over with that, but you're not going to win the moderates over.
And U.S. control your women. It's always, we have a video coming out tomorrow about the feminization of society and how wrong gender roles have become right now, but also how women have become the cause of a lot of these issues as well by misplaced motherhood and their misplaced mothering instinct. So they're trying to mother minorities and treat minorities as babies, so they have to go protect them, even though they're taking on a cause and they're taking on things that are way beyond their both capabilities, but also that are putting them in grave risk and danger, especially if they have children. But also for the older women, I am concerned that they might not know what could happen at one of these protests because they've never been to one, and now they're taking up the cause.
I'm not worried about what will happen to them. I will say this.
Well, no, because then Renee Good happens. Renee, I remember her name. Renee Good happens, and then they start saying, say her name, and more protests happen.
Well, I will say this. It looks even more ridiculous when it's a senior citizen acting like a child. I mean, it looks ridiculous to me, but I'm sure the general public that's watching that just say, what's going on
What
there?
the hell is happening? Let's read some comments and then we'll move on to the US.
Yep.
That will be a longer segment. Non says, where I live now, everyone has guns and open carry is legal. I think if I remember correctly, that was Washington.
We did we did stories about this that obviously Nat's forgetting. Trump is taking a lot of the states back to open carry, and a lot of people don't realize this because the states that are restricting gun rights are constantly in the news, but it's moving the right way as far as gun rights go. A lot of states are going back to open carry, which I like. And we did do another story where almost half, not quite half of a lot of, God, I forgot the statistic actually, but it was 46%. It's when people have open carry and they actually stop a crime, but I forgot what crime it was, but a large portion of crimes are stopped by people that have open carry. Hey, we can keep going.
Okay. Rafa says,
good to see
hello,
you,
happy
Rafa.
Monday. If you go back on the replay, you'll watch us have big technical issues earlier on the show because Rafa loves when we have technical issues.
Yeah.
Rafa also says, when will you appear in WDW Pro again? We're trying to work out the schedule, so we'll see.
Yeah.
But I'll let people know once we know. Walker says,
Oh, good to see you, Walker.
Americans be like, I'm half Cherokee. Their great-great-great-great-grandmother was Cherokee. Exactly, and that's what I mean. And all Latinos laugh about that because we might be from two different countries, but we always say we're from the country we live the most
But
time.
it's funny because I'm 136.
Kids, like-
I'm 136 Choctaw. I never. It's a tribe in Oklahoma. I never say it.
No.
I never brought it up, except in Canada. They made it illegal to protest unless you were First Nations or Native American. So I said, "Oh, really?" I went and applied for my card so I could get a card saying I'm 136 Native, and then the police could allow me outdoors and
Because
protest.
that's when we were going to the trucker convoys.
That's when we were going to the trucker convoys.
And I'm a Mexican.
And shortly after the trucker convoys, that's how we started the station, was going to those protests at the Canadian border for freedom. But they started outlawing protests in Canada. So my way around it was to get that card.
Although I think you never did have to use it.
No,
Yeah.
but I got it. Yeah.
But yes, I've always found that ridiculous. And I think most Latinos don't think that way. I think most of the world doesn't think that way. It's just mainly Americans and Canadians that are very like, oh, I'm great. My great, whatever. That makes me more interesting because they don't like to be Americans or Canadians. Hold on. Ethel says, no private conversations. Where's my freedom of speech in private conversations, guy? Just joking.
See, I'm respectful.
I wanted to read them. Ethel says, Guy, you are not a real Mexican without a sombrero. Put it on and you'll do better. You've got the mustache, which is a good sign. I don't think we have a sombrero to put on you right now.
Well,
Not in the studio, at least.
Yeah.
I'm sure we have one somewhere. Ethel says, Guy, how can you be proud of being Canadian if Canada is such a restrictive liberal s-hole?
Well, I'm not proud of being Canadian. That's a fact.
Well, the thing is.
I'd say more than half of Canada is not proud of being Canadian right now.
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody's Canadian in the comments, leave a comment. 30% of Canada is looking to separate right now. Alberta, Saskatchewan, Quebec, and even BC starting to have murmurings there. So I think a lot of people are not only not proud to be Canadian because they feel betrayed by their government, who's taking their freedom of speech, trying to take their gun rights, trying to take a lot of their rights that they said that they had. Apparently they don't have, but they want to leave the country now. Mm-hmm. And they want to leave the country and they want to take part of the country with them. And hopefully it does happen in Alberta first.
It's really cold in the studio today. I'm freezing. Ethel says, Nat, since white liberal women are the root of the problem, agree. Would you support taking voting rights from women? Would you give up your voting rights for the greater good? Wink, wink. We've talked about it before, and I always say I kind of agree with your vision and the vision that some people have put forth, where it's like one vote per family or one vote per individual that does contribute to society and or to ensuring or enshrining civil rights, which would be not civil rights, rights, which would be like people, soldiers, et cetera, et cetera. But like you do have to do some sort of service for the country to be able to vote and decide on it. If you don't care, then why would you be able to vote? That goes completely against democracy and the liberal democracy we see nowadays.
The liberal democracy, not democracy in general.
I know, but that we see nowadays, and that is a very subject to bring up because people have heart attacks.
And I'll explain real quick why I believe in one family, one vote, because I think one family, one vote, really, people that have a family, especially if they have a child, they're interested in the long-term future and the multi-generational future of the country, and they're really invested in the country. I think a lot of things need to change, not just in the United States, but globally. We have a story coming up later about Argentina, and I often talk about citizens should be the only ones allowed to own property within a country.
But yes, I think that opinion gets a lot of people riled up because they're, you want to take women's voting. No, I'm saying you should do some sort of service for the country in order to decide what goes on.
I'm not saying take women's vote any more than I'm saying take men's vote. One vote per family. And I'm even open to the idea of 1.5 votes per family if that family has a child. Because a family with a child really, really does have long-term interest in the country.
How do you have a vote?
Because it's a child. Canada already has this system. A lot of people don't know. Certain provinces, one vote's actually worth 2 votes. That's why the Western provinces kind of feel left out because their vote doesn't really count.
And Ethel, with that, says one vote per family would immensely benefit Democrats because all of them will instantly divorce and have more votes. But I mean, individuals, unless you're doing some sort of service for the country, wouldn't get a vote. So they would get less votes, not more.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely up to debate on the subject. I do like the idea of one family, one vote. I'm also, like you said, the idea of service provides a vote. So if you serve the country for a certain number of years, then you're allowed to vote too, even if you don't have a family. Or even
just like if you join a cleaning crew for a year and a half.
Yeah, but also...
Or trash collecting.
The more I think about that, I think even those people should be part of a family, so they will only get a vote if they have a family.
Yeah, but again, if it's like a single individual that really wants to vote,
I think probably
then they should do some sort of social service for X amount of years.
I would rather just have one family, one vote. If those people...
But what happens to all the single people?
Then they have to be part of a family. They have to invest in the future of the country, because right now...
What if they get divorced?
If they get divorced, and they lose their right to vote. Period.
But what if it's abusive?
If they want their vote back, then they have to find a non-abusive husband or wife. I mean, I'm in an abusive relationship. I stick it out.
You should not say that. Sometimes when he says things like that, people take it seriously. Ethel said,
I take it seriously every night when the cameras go off.
You're asleep. Ethel says extra votes per child would immensely benefit Muslim families, and I do agree with that.
And, it definitely would. They also need to fix the immigration policies. You don't want groups that are going to come in and vote block into states like Muslims are doing, especially in the UK. They're literally bringing in Sharia law. One of the first things that has to be fixed is immigration. And it's not to say there's no immigration. There have been good immigration systems in the past. If we want to get towards those, we may need a time where there's a complete stop on immigration so we can get a hold on the situation. There's already been enough people coming into these Western countries. And when we restart it very strategically and very smartly so it benefits the people coming in and the country.
And Ethel, on the same vein, says, in the one vote per family schema, who's ultimately casting the vote? Is it a man or a woman? Imagine how many alcoholics would benefit immensely from this approach. I think, you get the vote, and then whoever wants to go cast it.
You have to agree as in a family, and if the family doesn't agree, if the man puts in the vote that the woman can cancel the vote by trying to go vote herself, and then both the families vote will be canceled out.
But that is a very there's a lot of kinks to work out with that.
I don't think there's as many kinks. There's a lot of kinks to work out with the country right now.
Yes.
I think that would be a good direction to go, or at least bring up that conversation, because when they talk about voting rights, one vote per family is rarely discussed, and there's mass benefits to having one vote per family because.
But then I do agree. There are a lot of circumstances where what if the husband dies or the wife dies, then do you lose your vote?
Then you lose your vote.
Or you're still a family.
You lose your vote.
I would say you're still a family.
You're still a family, but you're going to lose your right to vote because you never.
So it has to be two people. What about gay marriages?
We'll leave that one for today.
What about abuse? What about? There are a lot of what
Yeah,
about.
there's different things that need to be talked about.
Yes,
So-
because I don't know if it would work perfectly. That's why I say,
And that's why
it might be like 1 year of service to the community or service to the country, and that gets you a vote.
And I'm also up to the idea.
Because way less people would do that.
I'm also up to the idea you only have a vote if you have a child as well in that family. But
I think my scheme of some kind of either social or civil service, and you get a vote for like a year and a half.
I think there needs to be major debate on these issues because I think
nobody's
there's
talking.
kinks in
But
everything.
it's so taboo, and it's like you can't talk about
No,
this
but
because.
But you can talk about it
Human
now
rights.
because they're giving illegal immigrants the right to vote by saying you don't need voter ID. So who actually has the right to vote? When we start expanding it out past the idea of you have to be a citizen to vote,
citizens, yeah.
because right now you don't even have to be a citizen in 6 states like California.
Mhm. And Ethel says all the retired people will lose their right to vote. They will not like it. I mean, retired and widowed. Yeah, that too.
Yeah,
Again,
but it will-
that's why I say it should be service based. That's a way better scheme to do it because way less people will want to do any kind of service.
Right now, older people have a way outsized votes, and that's why Social Security is always off of the table.
That too.
But yeah.
Hold on. Rafa says, I'll watch the technical issues when this live ends while I wait for the next one. Oh, Rafa's going to get mad at me today because I'm going to announce something that you suggested, but that I will have to implement, which is for the Spanish show, I'm cutting it down to 2 days a week.
Yeah,
Don't get mad
either
at me.
Monday and Wednesday or Monday and Friday. We have to do edited videos for your Spanish, channel,
yeah.
and she's unwilling to do.
Unwilling.
She's unwilling to do quicker edited videos. She wants to do
Actually research properly done, like the ones I used to do in the Spanish channel, but I do need the time to be able to do it and
But even the YouTube gives you recommendations, algorithms talking about the future of the channel, where the growth is going to be, and her channel, her Spanish channel, is expected to go down,
in
if she
subscribers.
doesn't start making edited videos. It literally says
so
that.
I'm going to have to but this live will continue to be 3 days a week. I just need the time afterwards to be able to either finish editing, publishing, Instagram, TikTok, for both channels. It's a lot of things to do. But sorry. Rafa says, I'm like 128th Lenca. I don't even know what that means. I'm guessing it's some kind of Spanish tribe. Walker said, Mexican tribe. Walker said, Rafa, I'm like 12% Nigerian. In Latin America, everybody's a percentage of something. And because again, we were, I don't say conquered, but we were taken over by the Spaniards. So a lot of people, when they see me, for example, they're completely aghast that I don't look like what
are
a
you talking
Mexican
about?
looks like.
According to modern science, we're all Africa. We're all out of Africa, according to modern science.
Which is a theory that has been disproven. But when people come to Mexico, even you a little bit were surprised. Like, oh, why are there so many people that look kind of white and kind of like this, kind of like that? Everybody has a percentage of something in their DNA in Latin American countries.
Okay, let's go into U.S.
Hold on, one more.
Okay.
Rafa says, time to speak out, guy. You have our support about my abuse.
There's no domestic abuse shelters for men. We need to fix it.
This is your domestic abuse shelter.
Okay, let's
Rafa
go
says those are not real marriages. I don't know what he was talking about.
Our marriage, probably.
No.
Okay, let's go into U.S. politics here.
Hold on. I have to look for it. There we go. We are a real marriage. But there's a lot of things happening in the U.S.
Yeah, we have quite a bit in the U.S. politics section. After the U.S., we're going to go to Canada and then Latin America. I think Latin America today is actually the most interesting section because of all the troops being moved to the U.S.-Mexican border from both sides.
Yeah. But starting with from Eric Doherty, quote, our enemies are furious. President Trump just cut off oil and money to Cuba, and massive FAFO is playing out. Now that Maduro is gone, Cuba might fall next. Yet another ally of China, the Iranian regime, is also on the ropes. And I would include there Colombia because of the elections that are coming on, because we talked about Petro's phone call with Trump last week where he completely folded.
Well, he's talking tough again now. He's like a bipolar child.
He is a bipolar child.
Minutes ago, President Trump calling out Cuba on Truth Social, urging the regime to cut a deal with the U.S. following the military action in Venezuela. Trump declaring that no more oil or money will be going to Cuba from Venezuela, adding, quote, I strongly suggest they make a deal before it's too late.
Hey guys, that was the prediction. You take out Maduro, you control the oil, which was going there. You're going to see Cuba go down and maybe even Nicaragua.
It's like the domino effect. Minutes ago, President Trump called.
And I mean, he's not messing around anymore. He's just being straight up with everything. Now, I don't think he's going to follow through with all these things. Marco Rubio is going to Greenland to try to cut a deal next week. Denmark's going to have talks with the U.S. as well. But he really shook up the playing board, and a lot of countries just don't know what to think, which is part of the strength when he goes into a lot of these negotiations. Mm-hmm. And so far, he hasn't. These have been strategic strikes. He's been in and out, and he hasn't put major boots on the ground and expanded military bases. So far, I do support it, and I do like what has happened in Venezuela. Mm-hmm. Now, the problem is we did talk a few days ago about Congress just passed legislation, and both Democrats and Republicans agreed if Trump wants to do anything else in Venezuela, he has to get permission through Congress. Congress is not going to give permission. So it kind of stalemates as far as giving threats to Venezuela now. He kept the old regime in there, which was good because he had the big stick to kind of say, you better do what we say. Now, if they're paying attention to U.S. politics, they're going to know, well, Trump no longer has the ability to do anything. First, he has to go to Congress. We can do whatever we want until Congress has approved something, and then we can do what he says. So,
and also with the whole Cuba situation and with the conversation, the phone call that Sheinbaum and President Trump had earlier today, for which she had to reschedule her little morning talk show that she does every morning. It is interesting that from the U.S., it's also coming out, and directly from the White House, not Trump himself, but it's coming out how much oil Mexico sends to Cuba and is now sending even more that Venezuela's supply has dried out or has been confiscated by the U.S. So that is another sticking and talking point that the U.S. has over Mexico, aside from all of our corrupt politicians, etc. But to see that he's also, and that the conversation is also around Cuba, might also help with the negotiations with Mexico and getting Mexico to actually do something because of the levels of just immense corruption and immense support that Cuba has received and continues now to receive from Mexico.
Yeah, he's going to need to connect a lot of these dots together, and I think that's what he's trying to do. And I think Mexico is the ultimate goal. It's much easier to sell Mexico to your base because it's on the border. The threat's on our border. It's a real threat. It's not a forever war overseas. I always thought if he went into Venezuela or Cuba or all these other Latin American countries, he was going to have to connect it to Mexico. Otherwise, his base would turn on him. And he needs to connect these dots fast before the midterms. Mm-hmm. So.
But also from Luke Goldstein, the last worker in the U.S. who knew how to make tubas is having his union job shipped to China by hedge fund billionaire and Trump advisor John Paulson, who made TV rounds to defend tariffs as a way to bring jobs back to the U.S.
Yeah, and Trump does a lot of good things bringing manufacturing back to the United States. This is one case where I don't like what's happening, and I hope somebody comes in and buys this company back and brings it back to the United States.
Tubas as in the instrument?
I forgot I put the story in here, but it was a good story.
This is why Gorski.
I'm a color buffer. I'm one of 2 people who do tubas in the United States. I'm probably the only one who does tubas and sousaphones. I love this job.
He works at Conn-Selmer over in Eastlake, but his dream job is being snatched from him.
I am the single person that can make that horn look perfect for the kid who's going to play it.
On Wednesday, right before union negotiations, the company announcing they're closing the site and moving operations to China. Gorski and his 150 coworkers left speechless.
Oh, and I think when the story is written about this place, in the end, it will not be one of financial failure, but rather a moral failure.
Conn-Selmer is the last USA-made brass instrument manufacturer and the largest manufacturer of band and orchestra instruments in the U.S.
It's an interesting choice to make at a time when politicians across the country, including the president, are calling out corporations to bring manufacturing back to the U.S.
This shouldn't have happened. We had the talent to save this. We gave suggestions. We've had meetings. You name it, we've said it.
So now what? As they wait for answers, Gorski says goodbye to what he loves as he works on his last few instruments. The company planning to close the doors by summer.
Yeah, and this is an important story to bring up. Stories like this do grab Trump's attention, and you see him take action once in a while if they can get enough widespread coverage and somebody in the administration takes notice. So hopefully it starts with a small channel like this playing it. That was on mainstream news, and then other channels kind of pick it up. And bringing manufacturing back to the United States is important to Trump, but especially when it's an American company and it has a connection to high schools in America and bands. I mean, that's Americana. Yeah.
And it would be a great story to put it back into the forefront and the American dream and the building things from scratch and the made in the US. That would be, especially because of the high school and marching band component, that would be a great thing to bring into the forefront. And if Trump wants more goodwill, for him to come and sweep and save it.
Or even if a big investor like an Elon Musk comes in, even though he's not in that industry, that would get a huge amount of votes within that small community. Those seem like real down-to-earth grassroots union workers when you hear them talk. I mean, we used to work for the Teamsters Union, and those are the kind of guys that are union workers. Yeah. So although they're banking band instruments, there's a certain personality type you can tell are union guys.
Mm-hmm. But we also talked about this a little bit ago from Love Me When I'm Gone, quote, executive order to be signed today, making English the official language of the United States. No more Spanish. Press 2. All government forms will be printed in English, saving probably millions of dollars in paper. This story had already been reported about the initiative to try to sign the act, but now it has gone apparently into effect. It was signed March 2025. And
so now it's going into effect, which is
and now it's actually being picked up by news.
And it's happening right now at the White House. This is breaking news here on the Fox News channel. We have just confirmed that President Donald Trump will sign an executive order that will make English the official language of the United States. In our nearly 250-year history, we've never had an official language. Ever. The executive order expected to be signed sometime today. Bill Clinton made a move on this back in the 90s, but the mandate that he signed will now be rescinded. In other words, what he did in the 1990s is that he did not require agencies that work for the government to provide English only. They had to provide more options for those who needed different languages upon which they spoke. Donald Trump's going to change that, and we'll see whether or not he sends it up to the Hill, Congress, maybe Speaker John Thune, maybe they jump on something like this with Republicans in control to sign it into law. You know, many times they've said, if you don't codify it, it doesn't last. But today, the executive order...
And it's making headlines again because it's getting close to going through and being enacted at this point. That being said, a lot of people are saying, well, what about Spanish speakers? If you want to build an identity for the country, and that's what they're trying to build right now, every other Western country is trying to give their identity away to mass immigration and other cultures that are absolutely flooding their country, and they're losing their identity. But even before that mass immigration happened in Canada, there were two languages. There was French and there was English, and there was a divide between French and English speakers. French was mandatorily taught in every high school in Canada, but there was a massive divide. French speakers feel like they're elitist. They feel like they're a different nation. There's a separatist movement currently going on in Quebec. Will it happen? The last time it happened, it failed by, I think, 1 or 2%. So,
yo digo, pues qué bueno. I say that's good because, again, coming from Canada and seeing how catered to everybody else is and how much you don't have to, if you don't want to, learn English it is, and also now experiencing it on the other end with you having to and trying to learn Spanish. And it does take a long time and it is a big effort, but if you're already making the effort to go somewhere else, you have to be able to communicate with the people that are already there, and that that encourages assimilation, which should be something that is encouraged, because multiple times in Canada, there's been situations where you just can't communicate with the other person. Either they be serving you be helping them or serving them. I worked retail, I've worked in restaurants, I've worked in the film industry, and there has been too many times where you can't actually talk to the other person because they don't know the language.
Well, it's one thing when it's two languages. In the United States, it would probably be Spanish and English. In Canada, it used to be French and Canadian and English. That being said, a lot of government offices now require to have multiple different translators for multiple different languages. All documents have to be provided in multiple different languages. That ends up costing hundreds of millions of dollars for every single language you start adding on there. Mm-hmm. And Canada has just gone off the rails when it goes to that. It's no longer just two languages.
Mm-hmm. It's all the languages.
Okay.
Moving on to a story that I heard about from The Quartering, funnily enough. If you don't know who that is, Jeremy Hambley. I like him sometimes. Sometimes he gets into drama. But this is insane.
Well, he used to have a drinking problem. I haven't seen him drink in a while, though.
Okay. But this is insane. Breaking, it's official. FBI investigations are being launched after 700 million was found in 700 million or more was found in Somali suitcases at a Minneapolis airport. Somalian couriers are attempting to transport the money to the Middle East, mostly Dubai, apparently, trying to get as much money out of the country as possible.
Now it's reported that it's up to 750 million. Some reports that are coming out. That's $750 million in suitcases going to Somalia. This is absolutely
to Dubai,
bonkers. And that's just one bus they made. How many more suitcases are like this? How many people are actually getting on planes where you're actually allowed to bring less than $10,000 legally with you?
And again, the whole Renee Good mess that ISIS and the protests that we're seeing was all started because of the defense of these
and this is still going on. So if stories like this can really get out into the zeitgeist, people realize that it's justified not only why ICE is there, but these communities have massive amounts of corruption that's currently being glossed over from these protests. People are forgetting why law enforcement's actually there.
Developments in Minnesota. We're going to turn our attention back to the Somali fraud investigation. As we've discussed before, authorities have discovered suitcases containing hundreds of millions of dollars in a Minnesota airport. Now, in the meantime, Republicans are working to cut funding for Somali-led organizations with alleged ties to the massive fraud scandal. Now, as the FBI pushes forward with its own investigation, one key question arises. What does accountability even look like in this case moving forward? So joining us now to talk about all of this and more is New York Congresswoman Claudia Tenney. Congresswoman, thanks so much for being with us tonight.
Great to be on with you, too. What a crazy time we're seeing here, aren't we?
Absolutely insanity. And I know oversight in the House is looking into these fraud allegations, but I wonder if it's even bigger than we have uncovered thus far. The $700 million in cash going out of the airports there. I have a feeling we are still just scratching the surface.
Yeah, it looks really bad and obviously very alarming to see that this U.S. cash has been legally going through our airports. And of course, there is a requirement of reporting if you're going to carry more than $10,000. There's a reporting requirement, but I think a really interesting part about this is if, isn't it going to be a little suspicious when you start seeing 10,000, 100,000, millions, and now, more, as John reported earlier, more money that goes through JFK, goes through the Minneapolis airport. Something's wrong there. And I think something that's very interesting that we impose on banks is that banks are required under banking law to require and file and keep track of what they call suspicious activity reports. This is something I think we need to do now when we see the large amounts of U.S. cash, and it's always U.S. cash. I mean, you're not going to see, Chinese yen or anything else going through there. And U.S. cash is king, and we need to certainly have this type of cash exchange reported. It's interesting because you see all this illegal immigration we've had over this time. And by the way, most of those Somalis that are in Minnesota probably came through a refugee program, and probably many of them are already legal American citizens. So suspicious activity reports, some kind of accounting for cash, I think would really be helpful.
Okay. And that being said, there's going to be documentation there because that money is coming most likely from the government grant programs, whether it's for daycare, healthcare, or any number of the things that are currently being uncovered. $750 million is a ton of money. This is only one example of that. There has to be massive banking records of where this money came from, when it was withdrawn.
And what's been happening in California and every single other state where it's become a sanctuary state, we are seeing the downfall of Tim Walz and Jacob Fry, the mayor of Minneapolis. But at the same time, that just makes it even more understandable why they're trying to defend this and get people riled up and now to protest, because otherwise this continues to come up and to be uncovered, and the soup keeps boiling over and they don't know what to do. So their best bet is to continue to encourage the mayhem that is happening on the streets, especially with these old, but not just the old.
Well, the news keeps reporting there's protests. Oh, they don't say why. This is unjustified, but they're not saying why. And a story like this really crystallizes it again and brings it back to focus. There's a reason police and military are there.
And there's a reason why they want to encourage, the Democrats and those involved want to encourage the protests and the destruction to continue to happen. I will also say I have been seeing a lot of either be them fake or real, but quote unquote patriots that are going to these protests and actually starting to behave like the insane Antifa people. And I will say that is not helpful to be able to then, what we always say, that is not the way, conservatives and America First and the right behaves. We're never go do that, but now they are going to go do that. So I would say chill.
Conservatives need to stay away from these protests.
Yes.
Nothing good's going to come from there. We did talk about, God, I forgot his name now. There's one guy that's an agitator, a conservative agitator. Huh?
That brings a pig.
Yeah, that brings the pig, brings the bacon, and he's literally trying to make confrontation so he can make social media go viral, get on the news, and nothing's good is going to come from this.
No.
It destroys and undermines the movement, and it brings violence. We've seen what happened with January 6th. They want to point to incidents like that.
And again,
I mean, as justified as I believe Kyle Rittenhouse was, look how they pointed at that case and they tried to convict that kid for life for something that was like he was defending himself at that point.
And again, to bring it back to him, I mean, this is not what Charlie Kirk would have wanted. I will say.
Okay, let's get into the next story here.
Because a lot of people are doing it in his name.
Well, maybe Erica Kirk does, but she did make that CIA
I'm not
video.
going into Erica Kirk. I like this one. From Eric Doherty's, some common sense out of Chicago. The chief of Chicago police is being praised nationwide because it's this easy to get praised nationwide
Okay,
when
you
you
don't have
just
to-
say the truth.
You can just play the clip here.
Okay.
And it was good to see the Chicago police chief say this because this is one city I did not expect this narrative to come out of.
Because just recently they were combating and saying they were going to go against ICE and they were not going to let ICE into Chicago. Now the tune has changed.
Let me make this clear. Federal agents, ICE, HSI, are officers. They are agents of law enforcement. If you box them in with vehicles, it is reasonable for them to believe that they are being ambushed and that this could end in a deadly situation. And it's reasonable for them to use force based on those conditions. Do not box in any law enforcement officer. You are breaking the law when you do that. And you are putting yourself in danger. Following law enforcement agents around. The question is why? What do you plan on doing? It's also reasonable for them to believe that you're eventually going to do harm to them. If you ram any vehicle, especially that one that contains law enforcement agents, and that's any law enforcement, local, state, federal, county, and you do this intentionally, this is considered deadly force. Deadly force is anything that can cause great bodily harm or death. When you plow into a vehicle that contains law enforcement agents, you're using deadly force. And they can use deadly force in response to stop you.
Okay, you can leave it there.
We need to be clear about these laws.
And that being said, this is coming from a police chief in deep blue Chicago. This is important to point out. Very often, the governor, the police chief, and the prosecuting attorneys are all very Democratic ideologues in a lot of these states. So it's good to see somebody like that come out and say that.
Mm-hmm. And then say just common sense and logic that used to be common sense, I think, and I'm not even American, but even for somebody outside of America, that used to be common sense that in the US, that's what happens.
Yeah, I don't think this situation needs to be as politicized as it has become. That being said, the left needs something like this right now because they're losing on a lot of different fronts.
Mm-hmm. And of course, always claiming victimhood is the best way to do it. One thing not to do, and something that goes along with my whole misplaced motherhood. Here it is, motherhood at protests. This poor child. And this not poor woman, she's retarded.
The fact that she thinks this is okay to do, like, this is absolutely ridiculous. You don't bring your child to a protest, especially where there's been violence.
And pepper spray and, rubber bullets, et cetera, You don't know what could go down. And this is both virtue signaling and idiocy.
This is a new tactic. This is a new tactic by the left. The last tactic they try to bring in is dress people up in blow-up suits like dinosaurs, stuff like that, so they didn't look like Antifa, so they were more palatable for the general public if they were shown on the news. This is just, this is beyond the pale.
It's just incredibly sad. From Eric Doherty, liberals are now showing up with their babies in Minneapolis, hoping any police or federal agents won't crowd control when things get unruly and dangerous. And it is evil, I agree, it's freaking evil.
hate what's happening to it with people who frankly aren't from here coming in and telling us who should be here. And when it comes down to loving my neighbor, I'm just going to love my neighbor. So
You have a little peanut with you.
I do. This is Lola.
Lola, and why was it important for you to bring her?
Just to feel the energy of love and community and to show people that I'm not going to let someone else intimidate me to live in a city that doesn't represent what I want it to represent. I want to be able to bring her in a place where people are saying we love our neighbors.
So that's all that there's I grew up here. It's known as a very welcoming place. Can you believe your eyes? Can you believe what you're seeing happening in the street?
I mean, no, and also I have to, because if I don't believe it, I'm not going to take action, and I think it's important to stand up for what's right. And
she can take action without bringing her kid there, and I'm fine with. I understand there's two sides to every story, and she disagrees with a lot of my views. It's fine for her to be there. I just don't like the idea of her bringing her kids, especially when these protests have
I hate
gotten
when
violent.
people bring dogs to protests because I think it's unsafe for dogs.
And you have to
Let alone
know
children.
the left wants something to happen to her baby, because if they can get that on film, it is going to go nationwide. So they're going to
Maybe even her, like they're at that level of psychosis that they're like, oh, maybe I'll be an even bigger victim if my child gets hurt. And it will be justified for the revolution. That's insane.
I wouldn't go that far, but I would say that other organizers.
Maybe subconsciously.
No. Okay, let's keep going.
show up the way that I would want someone to show up for me.
What's your name?
I'm Molly.
Molly. Thank you, Molly. Thank you. I hope you make it back. Thank you.
And she seemed like a nice and normal enough person. What would possess herself to bring her child there? But I will say, we have been to a number of protests here in Mexico City. The last one did get pretty violent, but not till the end. That being said, there was a lot of children at that protest as well.
But I mean, that one was more understandable for there to be children there.
I don't like the idea of
I don't like the idea of bringing kids,
children, especially to violent protests. The last protest was violent, and it did turn
at
violent.
the end. Yeah,
No, there was hammers before that.
that was
as
a
well.
feminist protest.
Okay.
The other one you're talking about is the Gen Z one, where beforehand everybody was wearing white and singing "Kumbaya."
Oh yeah,
and
let's
then
go
mayhem broke
into Canada here.
Well, we have comments.
Oh, we do.
Quite a few.
Oh, fantastic.
But I mean, I will say, what would possess someone to do that? It is the ideology and the mentality and the religion that they follow now that would allow them to think that that is a good idea, and that they're righteously justified in doing insanely stupid things, and mostly also breaking the law.
Well, I wouldn't.
Again, don't even bring dogs to protests. It's not worth it. They'll get hurt. They might get dehydrated. They might get pushed or shoved.
You have
children. Even worse.
Okay, you can read the comments.
No, say what you were going to say.
I can't remember.
Okay.
Okay, so I will. They're obviously deploying different tactics, whether it's the dino suits or the babies. I think the next step here is going to be to mass deploy babies, and I don't think they have parents that are probably willing to bring their babies in mass. So fake babies, I would think that would be something that would be handed out at these protests.
But I mean, she's also saying, oh, I want her to see the community, and that I want to protect my neighbors, and that I get to decide who lives around me. Do you know who they're arresting? Do you know they're arresting R-worders and child traffickers and a bunch of people that would, and you can go read their rap sheets as well if you want to in the DHS and the ICE website. You can see who they're actually arresting and the types of disgusting crimes to children that they have done, and that is why they're being arrested. But no, it all has to be, oh, poor minority, poor minority.
Yeah.
Minorities can never do anything wrong because they're not intelligent enough to do wrong things. That's the way they think. They think minorities are babies.
Yeah, but as a tactic, the organizers of these protests are going to look at this and say, wow, if we can get a baby on camera being hurt, that's going to be huge. If they have fake realistic babies that people are carrying, it's still going to look real to the cameras. And they have those jiggly fake baby things.
Jiggly fake baby things?
You haven't seen they have these new babies that older women are getting
they're called
because
real dolls, something like that. But yeah, that one's creepy too. Misplaced motherhood once again.
the sales of those are going to go through the roof with these protests.
They're expensive though, I think. I was watching a whole documentary about it. They take them to Disney. It's really sad. Rafa says Mexico was civilized by Spain. Exactly. That's what I was trying to say. Yeah, Mexico when Spain civilized Mexico, and we stopped eating that soup that you don't like. Well, the meat used to be human.
You also
meat,
have to realize Mexico chose to civilize itself because they coordinated with the Spaniards.
Everybody except the Aztecs.
It was very few Spaniards. It was 300 in a lot of these cases, and they had
it was other tribes that were being subjugated by the Aztecs.
Yeah, so
by the Mexica.
Yeah, so what I'm saying, it's not just the Spaniards by themselves. A lot of people get that idea. I've recently, since I moved to Mexico, been researching Mexican history. And yeah, it was a lot of tribes that were subjugated actually fought for the Spaniards.
Yeah, and with them. Rafa said about the marriage thing, I was referring to the gays, but those aren't real marriages. Walker says, I hope Trump vetoes the congressional decision to avoid repeating what happened in Venezuela and the JSOC taking Ortega from Nicaragua away from us. As Salvadorian, I would be grateful.
And that's what's coming out. A lot of these countries just want action to be done, and the international community is saying, well, no, we can't do anything. It's against international law. Well, it's against international law to not be the elected president and discard the election results of the election. So how do you have to deal with that at a certain point?
As a Mexican, I also would be grateful.
And Trump is pulling out of a lot of these international treaties, things like this. He can't have Russia and China have this huge advantage where, he's subject to international law. So I think he's trying to balance the playing field. And I said this to you, and it was, Trump is really balancing the playing field, and he's really consolidating power in the Western Hemisphere and with the United States. If a liberal wins in 2028, a Democrat, he's done more for the neoliberal order than any other president in history, because they're going to be the most powerful country on earth again by the time Trump's done with it. And every 4 years it changes.
Yeah.
So
Rafa says, Guy, do you like paper books?
Paper books?
I'll say no.
What other kind of books is there?
Audiobooks? You don't like to read, though.
I like audiobooks.
Yeah. You don't like to read. I do.
I read the notes.
But I have no time. Rafa says, check, activate.
I like paper books. Well, am I interrupting you? I like paper books as set pieces a lot.
And those are the books I actually read.
Yeah.
Rafa says, check active self-protection analysis on the ICE incident. He came to a conclusion similar to what I told you, Nat. I forgot what that was, but okay.
I didn't get that.
Get what?
Go to the next question.
Okay. Sorry, Rafa. Yes, I will. Rafa says, it's a channel that analyzes real incidents from a self-defense perspective.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody that's going to do analysis on what happened in Minnesota is going to come to the conclusion he followed legitimate protocol, and you're not going to prosecute him, period, with that.
They might try.
Even leftists that are being honest, and there's a lot of them
now,
are actually being honest about that situation.
We've also seen a lot of people in the Democratic Party over the weekend denounce Hamas. So something might be coming.
Something's going on with Iran there, I believe. They know what's kind of boiling up in Iran, and Hamas is connected with Iran. So they want to be able to take the side of the protesters with that particular thing.
But it dismantles a lot of the other things they've been saying. Neo says, pozole can be very tasty. It very much depends on a cook. Well, before, when the cooks were mexicas, it was human meat that was put in there from the sacrifices. That is true. Look it up. At least I don't make you eat that, because I've made him eat pozole. He doesn't like it, but at least it doesn't have human meat.
Well, I would love if you would cook for me.
Okay.
You do my dishes, though, so I'm happy with that. I can only go so far.
Not enough time to cook. Ethel says, Trump should have made American English the official language. Oh, yeah. Imagine those gay Brits with their version of English take over the streets of the U.S. That would be a disaster.
Yeah.
It positively would. Ethel says, Quebec needs to go. We are not accepting them as the 51st state because they do not assimilate. Exactly.
Well, and there's something interesting.
Quebec is weird.
Well, I follow the separatist movements in Canada very closely because I'm very pro-separatist movement, especially when it comes to Alberta and Saskatchewan, and hopefully BC one day, but BC is a little bit behind the ball right now. But all three of those can stand on their own feet, and they have a good internalized economy. Quebec, on the other hand, actually takes more from the federal government than they give. Their citizens think they actually pay more in taxes than they take, and that's just not the case. If Quebec separates, that might be the one province that actually has a lot of trouble standing on their own 2 feet. They could possibly separate and then be forced to either rejoin Canada or join the United States. I don't know if the United States would even take them because they just don't like to integrate even with Canada.
Mm-hmm. And hold on. Oh, and someone, Ethel, disagreeing with Rafa. Ethel says, Mexico has been civilized by Spain so well that Mexico City has lost all of its water canals, and cartels are now running the civilized version of the Mexican state. Bravo, Spain. A lot of the countries Spain conquered are now in disrepair as well, and dismay.
Okay.
And we could go into a whole version of Catholicism and socialism being inserted through Catholicism, but I'm not getting into it.
Well, I do find
Eventually, I'll make a video about it.
Southern Mexico is really poor, but it does have traditional indigenous tribes, and it's very interesting, the political dynamics down there with communism and the interaction between them and the federal government.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of Canada and Alberta and Quebec and all of them, let's move on to Canada. Land of the Chinese.
Well, we got 4 stories in this section. Then we're headed to Latin America, which a lot of exciting news in Latin America this week.
Depending on which side of the continent you're on. From Rise of Alberta, happening now, what was supposed to be a smaller event has turned into thousands in Calgary lining up to sign the independence petition.
And absolutely fantastic. Good on these people for coming out. I know the U.S. is taking notices of this. They're having meetings with the organizers of the Alberta separatist movement. So I hope this continues. If any province has an opportunity to separate, I think Alberta has the best opportunity, and they're the best organized right now.
For those who don't know, Calgary is in Alberta.
Yeah. A big community hall. It's a big round. Yeah.
Just so Canadian. Oh, it's a big community center.
If you're in line to sign and you really feel that that's the only reason you want to be right now, you can stay in the line. But if you want to stand and watch the show and then sign later after the line,
I do not miss this.
Okay, and you can leave it there. And this was expected to be a small event that they could actually hold with inside the community center with the show and stuff. They were getting people to sign the petition. It's fantastic. People were willing to come out in that kind of weather. That means these people are motivated. They will go out and vote when it's voting day. If they got to take off work, they're going to be there. If they're willing to sign the pre-petition in the snow, and there's thousands of them, this is a good sign, because it's not about everybody's going to come out and vote. A very small portion of the population is actually going to come out and vote in that referendum. So if they're motivated to get out there, their voices are going to be heard. At least I sure hope so.
Yeah, it's cute. I mean, it's good. It's good. I'm just worried that it won't, there'll be all this actual things that happen and petitions and then the referendum, and then they're not going to let it happen.
This is the thing. The Canadian government is already planning to try to stop it from happening and not recognizing them. If the U.S. government steps in and recognizes them, that confirms that vote, and they will be able to separate in all likelihood. That's why they need to get this thing done while Trump's in office, and they need to get it done early when Trump's in office, meaning they can't wait to the last year. Because even if he recognizes it, if the Canadian government can delay, maybe the next vote doesn't go so well.
And while we talked about most of the Commonwealth trying to band together to ban X and on the whims of a bikinied Keir Starmer, there's now other reports that say that Canada might not want to.
Yeah, so Canada looks like it was the weak link here and possibly is pulling out of this thing. It looks like it was supposed to be Canada, the UK, and Australia all banning X at once in unison.
The Commonwealth.
So Elon and Trump wouldn't be able to push back against all three. Trump has too much leverage on Mark Carney right now with the tariff negotiations, with the Alberta separatist movement, with the Saskatchewan separatist movement, with the Quebec separatist movement, and the Quebec election coming up. There is a ton of pressure on Carney right now, especially with his meeting with Xi Jinping in China. That didn't go over well. So the fact that he had to make a public statement in order to appease Trump, it was good to see. Maybe that's what ends up saving free speech, is this pressure Trump is able to apply on these countries individually.
Basil the Great says, Canadian government rejects Keir Starmer. Despite taking a call with Keir Starmer on the matter yesterday, the Canadian government has said, we want nothing to do with banning X. They kind of want to ban it but on their own terms, I think. Keir Starmer tried to encourage Canada to join him in a multi-country ban. Keir Starmer is a loser.
They had a meeting behind closed doors, and they did meet, and it was expected that it was going to go through. And then the rumors came out about Carney, and then the whole thing started falling apart. And the EU wants to get in on this as well. They can't because of of the conflict between Ukraine and Russia, and they absolutely need America involved in that in some way, shape, or form. So
I was going to say something and I forgot, so let's move on. From Cat Canada, at a Pierre Poilievre rally in Duncan, I came across a protester holding a sign calling Poilievre a foreign psyop. When I asked her some questions about it, it went exactly as you might expect. And
this is
Pierre Poilievre is a leader of the opposition Conservative Party in Canada. And I was also going to say, I said Calgary is in Alberta because when I first was going to go move to Vancouver, I didn't even know where it was. A lot of people outside of Canada don't know where things are in Canada. Or the things
this
are
is another example, but a different example of a libtard protester. I mean, she's not representing her movement or her cause very well. And I have met good liberal protesters that can answer questions and do believe in things. It's just hard when they're forced to take stances that are really hard to defend.
About your sign? Who are you? I'm Kat. Kat from what? From myself, from the night.
They're always older women, the ones that are standing there with signs.
I'm out. Okay. You said that Pierre is some kind of psyop? Yeah. Like, what do you mean by that? You go home and look it up. Go home and look it up? What? You're right in front of me. Don't you? You probably have the information already. Would you mind sharing? Like, why is he a psyop? No. He's a foreign psyop. So that's a heavy accusation. Why don't you want to talk? I just want to ask a quick question. How is he a psyop? How is Pierre a psyop? How is Tamara Cronus failing? Just a few details. Just a few words. How is he a psyop? Foreign who? Foreign psyop. Which foreign nation is he a psyop from? Ma'am?
Stop harassing me. I'm going to call the police.
Harassing? Yeah. How is this harassing?
Harassing me, and I'm going to call the police in a few seconds.
This is a public.
I'm going to have you arrested for harassing me.
This is a public
Don't
space,
harass
ma'am.
me. Don't harass me.
I'm not harassing
Don't
you.
harass me.
I'm just asking a question.
Don't harass me.
You have a sign, and I'm just asking you about your sign.
Don't harass me.
I'm not harassing you. I'm just asking you a question. I'm 6 feet back from you, and I just want to know why you think Pierre is a psyop. That's a heavy accusation, calling the leader of the opposition a foreign psyop, and I just wanted to ask you about it. Any words? Any explanation?
Stop harassing me.
I'm not, ma'am, this isn't
Stop
harassment.
harassing me.
Ma'am, this isn't
Stop
harassment.
harassing me.
Is that all you have to say? Is someone paying you to do this?
I'm allowed free speech, and you're harassing me.
This is my free speech.
You're harassing me.
This is my free speech to ask you a question. This isn't harassment, ma'am. If you're holding a sign that's so accusatory, you better be able to handle some questions.
Call the police then.
She's telling her to call the police.
I don't need to
call the police then.
I don't need to call the police.
Stop harassing me.
This isn't harassment, ma'am. This is just my free speech
This
and
is
your
going to
free
be so
speech.
much fun on the internet.
I think it will. Do you think
Okay,
you're
you
going
can
to
cut
come
it
up
there.
She looks like a retarded turtle.
It's kind of crazy that she can't even make the argument of why Pierre Poilievre's a psyop. I can make the case for it. I don't believe he is, but I can make the case, and the case would be that there's major separatist movements happening in Canada. 30% of Canada wants to separate now, and Pierre Poilievre is bringing nationalism into Canada. And I mean, there's multiple ways to make the case. She literally made the sign. It seems like the left is just trying to take right-wing talking points that right-wingers use on liberal or globalist candidates, because globalist candidates are very often psyops, so they want to use the same language.
Yeah.
But you could make a case, and the fact that she could take the time to write the sign and didn't even think about the first principles of why is he a psyop? She should be able to at least make a one-sentence statement.
Yeah. Not even just make a sign. I mean, really interesting handwriting too, but also quasi-laminated by putting plastic bags over it while she stands in the rain like a retarded turtle.
And she's trying to get the attention of people.
Yeah, of course.
Like, okay.
You're harassing me. I should do that when you start annoying me. You're harassing me.
That's the whole show would just be that then.
Yeah. Shazi says this clip sums it up perfectly. Corporations are exploiting foreign workers through LMIA fraud, fake job postings, LMIA's labor market impact assessment, cash kickbacks, and cheap compliant labor, all while bypassing Canada. Immigrants get exploited. Local Canadian youth get shut out of entry-level work.
Yeah, and this is really being exposed in Canada. Other Western nations should take note, especially the citizens, because this is definitely happening in the UK and the EU as well. America should take note so they don't bring similar systems in 2028 if the Democrats do win.
Corporations quickly realized they could bypass the domestic labor market entirely by exploiting the temporary foreign worker program and student visa loopholes. That's given rise to an entire underground industry known as labor market impact assessment, or LMIA fraud, where consultants and business owners sell job offers to desperate foreigners. Why? Because that job is their ticket to permanent residency. Businesses post ghost listings on obscure websites to prove they can't find a Canadian, then quietly hire the foreign worker who paid the kickback. The business gets cheap labour, the consultant pockets a fat fee, and the Canadian teenager looking for a summer job gets told there are no vacancies. The United Nations has gone as far as to flag Canada's temporary foreign worker system as a breeding ground for modern forms of slavery, and it's hard to argue with that assessment. We're now seeing international students living in vans or crammed 10 to a basement. Why? Because the colleges they attend are often nothing more than diploma mills located in strip malls above a pizza shop. These institutions aren't designed to educate, they're designed to print work visas. Students arrive, realise the education is a sham, and are forced into the gig economy just to survive, driving
and this, you can finish it up,
down
actually.
wages at the bottom end while pushing rents higher in the poorest neighbourhoods. The result is that immigrants are being exploited, the local youth are being priced out of entry-level jobs, and the only real winners are intermediaries, landlords, and corporations.
And this is extremely common in Canada. This has been going on for well over a decade now. It's just now starting to be exposed. This is definitely happening in other Western countries. People should pay attention to this and push back. And this is why the immigration system has gone so wrong, or one of many reasons.
And what was it? It was like 2 years ago, before we came here, but right before we came here, Clive Do Something, he's another YouTuber from Canada, interviewed someone that was investigating this kind of fraud that was happening within Indian communities, but it happens, and again, I worked at 2 different schools for international students, and luckily I didn't see too much of this, but again, just by being in Vancouver and connected to the industry of education, you do hear and see how people are actually being impacted by it, and them being promised to, go to beauty school or go study for it, like a year diploma. But then when you get there, either the school doesn't exist and you already paid all this money to the intermediary that's usually either in India, and then there's another one in Canada that will help make the deal. And then when you get there, you have no housing, you have no food, you have no school, you have nothing to do, and you end up having to work, but you can only work a set number of hours if you're in a student visa, especially if it's for only 1 year diploma. So they end up having to just work and pay for their stay, but they're not doing anything else in Canada.
Well, this is primarily happening with Indian immigrants and Chinese immigrants, but now that I live here in Mexico, I constantly get ads for these schools, ads come to Canada, you get citizenship. Canada. The Canadian government's literally promoting an entire scam. I mean, I get these things popping up on my Facebook all the time.
Yeah, and on X also. They're always on X.
Yeah.
Before we move on to Mexico, I'll read the few comments that are here. Speaking of Mexico, Rafa says that Mexico was civilized, but then it was decivilized again by Benito Juarez and others. And I do agree, if there's anybody that doesn't know too much Mexican history, try to find the actual history or an alternate version of history about Benito Juarez and how he destroyed Mexico, and how most of all the politicians that followed after him have just tried to replicate it, especially our last president, AMLO, or Andrés Manuel López Obrador, who was an idol, whose Benito Juárez was an idol for him. So yes, Mexico was very good for a while, and then it got destroyed again.
Okay.
We have comments from Ethel about the
Why were you looking at me like I was going to say something?
About the 51st state. Ethel says, I can see a lot of white males in that Calgary queue, not a single Indian or Muslim. Is that a coincidence?
No. Well, it's a coincidence that the federal government is now trying to absolutely flood Alberta with immigrants because they want them to vote against this thing. Mm-hmm. I think they might need to compromise here and say and make it clear, if you're an immigrant within the province at the time of separation, we'll work with you to get citizenship. So they don't get overrun with immigrants voting against the policy. Mm-hmm. That being said, every citizen of Alberta is going to have a major benefit. There will most likely be no taxes within that province if they actually separate, because they have enough natural resource wealth, not just oil.
Also says, carnivorous carne sour will never let Alberta separate, but conquistador Trump will make it happen.
Yeah, and that's what I think. I think Carney's never going to let it happen. The Canadian federal government's never going to let it happen. They're going to take the vote. They're going to rely on a strong leader like Trump to back that decision. It's in the Canadian Constitution. If they take the vote, they're allowed to separate, but they need somebody, they need their southern neighbor to really be strong and recognize that. Based upon Trump's actions recently, whether it's Venezuela or even talks of Greenland, Cuba, whatever, if they take a legal vote that's in the Constitution to separate, he's definitely recognizing them. And it's going to put Canada in a real tough situation at that point.
Ethel also says, Pierre Poilievre is a foreign psyop for sure. I can answer Cat Canada's questions. He's the liberal backup for neocons, and he's the psyop from China. And he's the psyop from China to turn Canada into China, which is over 50% true already.
Yeah, conservatives can tell you how Poilievre's a psyop more than the liberal can. They can only make the sign. That being said, he was talking about Venezuela's situation. He came out on the side that it was good, but he also wants the globalist in power. So okay, let's go into Latin America now. And big news coming out of Latin America.
Hold on, I was joking. We have one more. Sorry. That's why I was trying to hide from the camera. Ethel says, Canada has turned into a fraud country. Conquistador Trump should invoke massive Doge operation in Canada ASAP. We don't want to have a fraud-infested 51st state. It needs to be nice and clean, please.
It's not just Canada. I mean, the elites in these countries that are running these countries have betrayed their citizens on so many levels. I'm not just talking about immigration. They think because they bring in these immigrants, they have a new voter base, and that gives them cover. But in every single level, whether it's the economy or anything else, and as we showed kind of today in a lot of the other stories, only when it affects the politicians and the elites themselves are they willing to take action. I mean, 9 days after posting politicians in swimsuits, they took action. They didn't take action on those grape gangs for years, decades.
They hid it. They had to hide it for their own benefit. For some reason, tea went up my nose.
Okay, I don't want to know about your
I'm sure nobody does, but sorry. It feels weird. Moving on to Latin America now, where there is quite a bit of news. And of course, starting with what is worrying a lot of, at least Claudia Sheinbaum, our Mexican president here.
And I have a bit of a different take on this one, but we'll go into it.
From Don Lucra, quote, Mexico has deployed nearly 300 members of the Mexican army from the Campeche battalion to the U.S. southern border to protect their nation from potential U.S. operations. They say to uphold the sovereignty of Mexico. And they've also started recording a lot of these soldiers right in front of the border saying, we're not letting those gringos in, blah, blah, blah.
There's been a lot of soldiers moved to the border even before this situation happened. At Trump's request. Now, Sheinbaum has always used the cover of, we're protecting our own border, but it was pressure from Trump that has sent this mass amounts of soldiers there. This is just the most recent example. Today they had negotiations. She said the negotiations went well. There's a ton of pressure on her right now. I'll give you my theory on what's going on once we get past the next story because they're interrelated.
From War Radar, quote, large-scale U.S. military vehicle movements are being reported toward the Mexico border, triggering intense speculation. With President Trump escalating pressure on multiple fronts, questions are growing fast. Is Mexico becoming the next flashpoint? Regional tensions are rising, and the situation is being closely watched. We also had quite a few attacks over the weekend, both at an electronic music festival, but also targeted attacks at different family businesses by cartels.
And you can play the clip here.
Sorry.
Ah, bueno, qué momento. Mira nomás, mi raza. Ya valió madre. Ya se calentó esta madre. Ya valió madre, mi raza.
I don't know what they're saying.
Agárrate, hijo de la chingada. Ah, bueno, qué momento. Mira nomás. Mira. Ah, bueno, qué momento.
He's essentially saying, we're effed. Look at this, my people. We're completely effed. No effing way.
I mean, it's
Hold
just
on tight, everyone.
Ya va con soldados, Ya va con soldados adentro.
There's soldiers already inside. They already have the driver in it.
Ellos son
We're after them.
los
The
militares.
military.
Bueno.
Well,
Y ya lleva soldados adentro, mi
there's
raza.
already soldiers inside.
Y ya se calentó esta madre.
Things are heating up. Things are heating up.
And I wanted to play most of it just to show that there is a ton of military equipment currently being shipped to the border. And the thing about this, a lot of people don't know what's been happening at the southern border. They kind of shut it down, but they started building temporary military bases and more permanent structures there. So they can actually... They have somewhere for all this military equipment to go, for all these soldiers to go. They've been planning this for a while. It wasn't just to kind of protect the border. Sheinbaum's also sending troops up to the border. She's saying it's to resist the Americans. I think it's completely the opposite. She has to say that she's resisting the Americans so the cartels don't take her head. In reality, I think they're going to be running ops together. A lot of that equipment may be making its way over to the Mexican side and be given to the Mexican military as well. I think she's going to run operations in Mexico because she wants to keep the sovereignty of Mexico. She's going to want to look like she's fighting the cartels at the same time, but she wants to look like she's doing it on her terms, not on Trump's terms. And if she does that, to be honest with you, if she can somehow not get her head taken by the cartels, her party will have a good chance of winning the next election, because that is going to be the big issue. And a lot of the other parties right now are scared to even speak about that issue. If they don't speak about that issue and make it the number one issue, they're going to lose the next election. And if Claudia Sheinbaum, even if she's cooperating with the cartels, meaning I think she's going to run operations on these cartels, but they're going to pick who the winners and the losers are. And then they'll probably roll the winner up into the government itself.
And I do think, especially after seeing that she moved her, daily morning thing today, and they're all running incredibly scared because the amount of blackmail the U.S. has right now on the current Mexican government, but also the former one, which is the same party. And essentially, Claudia just takes orders from our former president, AMLO, even to today. I mean, phone calls get sent back and forth from Tamaulipas, which is the state where he is right now, calling into our palace, the Mexican presidential palace, to tell her what to do almost every day. So, I mean, that is well known, but also the levels of corruption, both with everything from oil being moved around, not just to Cuba, but being sold for more exorbitant prices, and a lot of the government people being involved in that. The U.S. knows all of that. Also, whatever El Mayo and El Chapo and everybody else is starting to talk about, even Maduro has started to say, Diosdado Cabello, which is Maduro's right-hand man, also has started to talk negatively about Sheinbaum, so there is some tension there. And there's all this pressure on her, so I do think she might be wanting to put on a brave face and say, sovereignty, sovereignty. We're not going to let the U.S. tell us what to do during her morning conferences. But then in private, I do think there is a lot more negotiation and a lot more leeway that she's giving, because she knows how much is on not just her head, but everybody else around her.
Well, the Trump administration has had nothing but good things to say when you look outside of Trump. The big heavy hitters and the players within that administration talk very highly of the cooperation that's happening between
today Marco Rubio
Mexico,
gave an angry statement, but
Mexico and the U.S., and specifically Sheinbaum. Yeah, Rubio's part of Trump. They're trying to give misinformation to apply more pressure. I mean, you don't watch politics like I do. I watch there are like 10 different people all coming out just praising how they're cooperating on every single level. And you wouldn't know that just based upon mainstream media and the stuff that's getting out there. You really have to be in the weeds to hear these statements that are coming out.
But from the Sheinbaum side, and after the call, she was still very forceful in saying, we're going to maintain our sovereignty. We're not going to accept any help from the U.S. This is not the way to deal with the cartels. But then we see a lot of military heading over to the border and them saying, oh, this is to go against the U.S. troops. I think it's more to aid the U.S. troops.
Let's give the big picture to the audience. I don't even know if you know the big picture at this point. What happened in Venezuela had huge add-on effects on what's happening in Mexico, meaning he set the precedent of how he can go into a country, do strategic strikes, take out politicians, by labeling them part of a terrorist organization, labeling the country a terrorist organization. He's already labeled the cartels a terrorist organization. He's labeled Maduro politicians terrorists, and if he wants to expand that out for every politician he labels a terrorist, he now has the right to go into the country and take them out.
She came out to say today that cartels cannot be classified, at least not under Mexican law, as terrorist organizations. So that Trump is completely wrong and he cannot act upon that.
Under international law, and this is
not
why
under Mexican law.
Yeah, no, but it's very strategic why Trump went into Venezuela in a very specific order, and he did very specific things before he went in. He labeled the cartels that were there terrorist organizations. He said the country was cooperating with terrorist organizations. He then labeled Maduro himself a terrorist. So he would have cover under international law. This is why Scheinbaum's trying to push back on this, but it doesn't matter what Mexico thinks under international law. So this is the case.
Or under our own laws, which we don't even know or respect anymore. But from Russian news, quote, the Venezuelan Congress voted unanimously, including all opposition parties, to condemn Trump for committing a mass ending against Venezuelans and to consider the United States intervention a terrorist attack.
And this is the problem that happened in the U.S. Congress when they passed a bill saying Trump can take no further military action in Venezuela without their approval. Congress isn't going to approve any further military action in Venezuela. So basically, they're signaling to the Venezuelan government, Trump can't do anything from here on in. So they may go back to doing whatever they want. And because it's the old regime, it's going to be interesting what happens. But also, if Trump does want to take further military action, it takes quite some time to get that approval. By the time they get that approval, Venezuela can just switch what they're doing. So then they're cooperating to avoid any military contact.
So right now, Venezuela's government is more like a paper, not even tiger, like a paper lizard.
I would disagree.
Durante la intervención militar contra la República Bolivariana de Venezuela, de fecha 3 de enero de 2026, de conformidad con lo que está establecido en el artículo 111 del reglamento.
Okay, you can leave it there. And that being said, I don't think there's much as a paper tiger as you think. As far as what actions they're going to take, they may not just do whatever the U.S. says. They have deep allegiances with China and other countries, and there's a lot of money coming into Venezuela to get them to do the opposite of what Trump wants. Now, Trump has a lot of power right now, but a lot of that power got taken away by that bill they passed in U.S. Congress, saying he can take no further military action. So,
and now moving on to Argentina, which is a story that you were really
getting into. These next two stories are connected.
From Combate, quote, an Argentinian affected by the Patagonia forest fire says, we're no longer shocked. We know it's intentional. There are powers involved. They have the real estate and mining interests. They don't even try to hide it anymore because they have everything on their side. We do know China has been putting their little fingers into Chile and Argentina over the past few years, allowed by the socialist governments that they had.
Not just China, the country that should not be named. There was actually a report done on this by James Lee, the station's 5149. He went in depth in this. He goes a little bit into conspiracy rabbit holes.
A little bit.
We'll play this, but then we're going to get into the second story, and that's actually the concerning story because they're selling off Argentina as we speak.
Like they sold off Chile.
And they're changing the laws right now to sell off Patagonia. And these forest fires are an excuse to lower the value of the land.
And Patagonia is at the very southernmost point of Argentina and Chile.
Estamos sorprendidos de que nos
no
prendan
longer
fuego
shocked
la
when
Patagonia.
they said
Sabemos que
Patagonia
es a
on
propósito.
fire. We know it's
Lo tenemos recontra en claro que hay poderes que están
Turn down the volume.
Because we do have some Spanish speakers. There are powers involved. They have real estate interests, they have mining interests, and it's something that lately they do right in our faces and they don't even try to hide it. They don't hide it at all because they have everything on their side. We're no longer shocked when they said Patagonia on fire.
Okay, we've seen that part. Okay, let's go directly into the next story because they're interconnected, and the next story is actually what gives that clip a lot more context.
I'm guessing I'll also have to read it. From Combate, December 9th, Milei announces foreigners can buy Argentinian land and develop it after the fires. January 9th, Patagonia is burning. Prosecutor confirms the fires are intentional. Accelerants and military grenades were found on site. They're not even pretending anymore.
Yeah, in my opinion, is only citizens can own land in a country, period. And that's what's going wrong with a lot of these Western countries. I don't like when I see a policy like this. Overall, I do like Milei. He's been involved in a few scandals, but this is not good whatsoever. Patagonia is untouched land and resources. Big mining companies, big oil companies are going to love to get into this region.
And they already have, that's the thing. Okay.
En cuanto a
Regarding
tierras
rural
rurales,
lands,
prohibir a la
the
compra
purchase by
por
foreign
parte de
private
privados
individuals is
extranjeros.
now allowed.
También se elimina la
The
prohibición de
prohibition on
cambiar la
changing the
actividad
productive
productiva
use of
del campo
farmland
por
for
30
30 to
60 años
60
tras
years
un
after a
incendio, una ley
fire
de
is also
En cuanto a
removed
tierras
regarding
rurales,
rural
se
land.
prohíbe la compra
The
por
purchase by
parte de
foreign
privados
private interests.
extranjeros.
Yours is louder. Prohibition on changing the productive use of farmland for 36 is also removed. That's it.
Okay. Basically, they're changing the law so foreigners can come up here, whether it's foreign corporations or even foreign citizens from other countries, and buy up massive amounts of naturally resource-dense land within the country.
And also show just...
and they're devaluing that land by these fires, and there's a ton of speculation going on. These are intentionally lit fires, and there's been videos circulating of people lighting fires within that region.
And this bottom part goes to your conspiracy theory. I'm not going to read it fully, but a country who must not be named tourist caught causing fires in Argentina in a forest full of natural resources.
And again, James Lee from the state channel 5149 goes into that conspiracy if you do want to hear more about it. He did a fairly good job. He was recently canceled for talking about similar issues, so I was surprised he did such a great report.
But again, we have seen mainly China, but also Canadian mining companies, which are all owned by members of the Chinese Communist Party, coming into Latin America, specifically Chile, who also allowed them to come in. And then they reversed when they were going to change their whole constitution in Chile. They wanted to allow for that to happen even further. And in Argentina as well, mainly with the socialist parties that were in before, but I'm guessing Milei is also kind of continuing and furthering it, unfortunately.
I mean, this is blatantly selling out your people here. And as many good things as he does,
like in California,
we need to point out when he does something bad and have people push back on him.
I mean, this is very similar to what happened in California with the Palisades fires.
This seems to be a strategy globally for whether it's corporations or other countries like China to come in and buy massive swaths of land for extremely cheap or to socialize housing on that land.
Because then you can blame it on forest fires and climate change.
This situation in Argentina is actually making Gavin Newsom look a lot better because at least he's trying to build social housing on it. They're literally selling the country.
He benefits from them.
They're literally selling the country to foreign investors and foreign interests.
Rafa says about the military, ya valió barriga, señor Mafre. Yeah. We're effed, essentially. And Rafa says, Guy, her party has all the chances of winning, and I agree. Sad face. If you put a sad face in the thing. But yeah, exactly. Guy is very hopeful.
About what?
About Morena being able to be defeated in the next elections. It's not enough time.
No, I think if anybody's going to have a chance, I think it's going to be the PAN. And this PAN has very little support in Mexico, but the elections are quite a ways away. It's really going to depend on the 2028 elections in the U.S. If Trump's successor kind of takes over, they're going to put a lot of pressure. They're going to put a candidate and a lot of money behind whoever's in the PAN because they're going to want a conservative. Also, there's multiple other liberal parties that can split the vote, so they can actually finance strong liberal candidates in the other parties.
They just collude with each other
to split the votes.
Yeah, but then here it's different. They changed the laws of voting and how representation works, where even if that happens, it actually benefits them.
I have a feeling the Americans are going to want to either put up that businessman or Lily Tejas as for the PAN. And I've seen in a lot of countries recently, it doesn't take more than a year to have a ton of momentum behind a candidate. And we're seeing in a lot of Latin American countries, candidates and parties kind of come out of nowhere and take elections. Okay.
Wait, we have comments from Ethel. Oh, quite a few. Ethel says, good. 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 Move military closer to the U.S.-Mexican border. It will at least keep some of those cartels in check, although the corrupt Mexican military will just assume the role of the cartels. That's the plan.
Well, and you also have to remember it's the Mexican military moving to the border and the American military. And a lot of the operations they're going to want to run are actually along the border, but they need an excuse to get those that military personnel there. So
that too. Ethel says, what I'm a little bit more curious about is when Mexico becomes the 52nd state, will it adopt American English as the official language? I think we would keep our language. But it's interesting, like the people that do speak English here in Mexico versus the ones that don't. It's interestingly divided by class, but not by the way you would think. I mean, yes, that the higher elite classes do speak English, but also the people that have gone to go work in the US and that now own like fruit stands or tamale stands or etc.
Yeah, I go to the cheese stand.
He's
or the
able to
tamale
talk
stand.
to everybody, but not the people that are now here considered middle class, which is where the failure of the public education system is really shown as well. Ethel says Sheinbaum is not appreciating Trump simply out of disrespect for the traditions of conquista. I would blame Sheinbaum for that. She needs to go back to the kitchen and cook in Israel.
Yeah, she understands Trump's power, and especially the way he's kind of trying to control the region right now. It's really pushing Sheinbaum to the middle. I think she would be far more left if she could. She just can't because Trump has way too much leverage over her.
Far left enough. Ethel says China will now buy farmlands in Argentina just as it did in the U.S.
Not just farmlands. It's Patagonia. There's going to be massive mining rights there. There could potentially be oil. I mean, the fact if
they've already gone in, they're already there.
Right now, it's still in conspiracy territory because it can't be 100% verified. But if they burnt down large swaths of Patagonia in order to sell it off to foreign investors, this is absolutely scandalous. Mm-hmm. And then it's the Argentinian government working with them because they're the ones passing the legislation to sell the land off after the fires.
As they always do. Let's quickly go on to the EU because we're running over. And let's try to hammer through this one. Hold on. From Basil the Great, EU insists on Farage clause in Keir Starmer negotiations. Keir Starmer is set to sign a Farage clause into law with the EU, meaning any cancelling of post-Brexit deals would incur a massive penalty on the UK. So destructive would be impossible to cancel the deal.
They know Reform UK is coming in mass. It's a mass populist movement. I don't like a lot of what Reform UK is doing. They're the best chance Britain has because they're at least different than the other parties. The problem is we're going to show a couple clips later of some bad policies that Reform UK is now flip-flopping on. And this is a common stance with Reform UK. They take a hard line on things and then they move the goalposts later on in order to try to get voters. And they're hoping voters aren't paying attention later on. Or if they are paying attention, they're like, well, even if they don't fix that one issue, they're still better than the Liberal or the other parties.
The Labour, in this case. And now from Poland, from Eric Doherty, Poland's right-wing president, Karol Nawrocki, just vetoed a bill that would implement the European Union Censorship Digital Services Act, which we've been talking a lot about. The state is supposed to guarantee freedom, not restrict it. We need more countries like Poland.
So it's not every country trying to cancel acts. It's just where all the major power centers are in the West. They are Canada, the UK, Australia, Germany, the rest of the EU. But there's individual countries like Poland, like Hungary, that are willing to stick with free speech and Donald Trump. And that's what they want. This is also causing a major rift within the EU. There were major politicians coming out over the weekend talking about that rift in the 7 countries that aren't aligning with them.
Mm-hmm. And then the video is just them shaking hands. Okay.
We're going to try to blast through the EU section here just because we're running a little bit over.
Yes.
And we'll slow down when we get to Australia.
From Britain is breaking. It is being reported that Keir Starmer, along with the rest of NATO, are ready to send troops to Greenland to fight against the U.S. forces. We talked about this on Friday as well. Not only has Keir Starmer ruined the U.S. and the U.K.'s special relationship, he is now flirting with war with America.
Yeah, he's just shaking up the game board here. They don't know what Donald Trump is thinking. Anytime he goes into a negotiation, he has massive leverage over every single country by keeping them off balance. And that's why he's got so many things going at once. What's going to happen with Greenland? I think they'll either make a deal or nothing will happen. It's a distraction tactic to talk tough on Greenland because he wants something else. It's like a magic trick. Show him this, but you're really doing something with this hand.
Mm-hmm. And now for more censorship in the UK in a different way. You kind of talked about it from Basil the Great. Quote, woman arrested in the UK for posting inaccurate information. You can now be arrested in the UK for just posting something that isn't correct.
And this is the story I was talking about before the show.
And it says there, well, I guess that means the entire BBC will be in prison shortly. Well, they are being sued for a lot of money by Donald Trump, so hopefully.
We have some breaking news now, and a woman has been arrested by Cheshire Police in relation to an inaccurate information on social media about the attacker in the Southport murders. It says a 55-year-old woman from near Chester was arrested earlier today, Thursday the 8th, of course, on suspicion of publishing written material to stir up racial hatred and false communications. She is currently being held in police custody. Chief Superintendent Alison Ross has also made a statement saying that this is in relation to a post which has been fueled by malicious and the protest rather has been fueled by malicious and inaccurate communications online. It is a stark reminder of the dangers of posting information on social media platforms without checking the accuracy. It's also a warning that we are all accountable for our actions.
It's almost like they're giving a warning for the government, and the government wants to take out independent news. The mainstream media reports on things all the time, and the facts change later on, and there's no accountability for them. You simply make an apology. If this woman made a mistake, made a post that wasn't legitimate, she should be given breathing room, and she should just make a formal statement and a retraction, just like any other news organization would. Why they're not giving her the opportunity to do that is crazy. The fact that they're also saying even reporting on the story is stirring up racial hatred. This is where you get these hate speech laws that are really insidious, and they are able to arrest people for even reporting on certain things.
And yet the BBC is being sued by Donald Trump for actually fully lying. And also when they had their little fact checker section that they kind of had to get rid of, they were also lying with the fact checks that they were giving, and they were never held accountable either. So
okay, and
1984. From Basil the Great says, OMG, Reform UK's new appointee Nadeem Zahawi is literally what?
Did you skip the story?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, go to the first Keir Starmer story. Breaking.
Yeah, we read that.
We did?
Yeah,
no,
EU insists on Farage clause and Keir Starmer's thing.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Keep going. There was another video I didn't grab.
Okay.
There's supposed to be
that's
two.
not my fault.
There's two policies with Keir Starmer. So there's another video with Keir Starmer and this gentleman, and this gentleman's new to Reform UK. He had major say on what was happening with the jibby jab at the time. Reform UK said they were going to do an investigation on the jibby jab if they got into office. Now they're flip-flopping and saying, well, no, the government did a great job during that era. And they're changing their stance ever since this gentleman came in. This is another clip of this gentleman, and he's seeming to have a lot of influence on Reform UK and in the wrong direction.
And it also doesn't seem like a heritage Brit, if you ask me, not by the name, not by the look. Reform UK's new appointee, Nadeem Zahawi, is literally arguing for third world migrants to take money from the UK and send it back to their home countries, like they do here in Mexico from the US. WTF is going on.
Yeah, but a lot of this money is given to these migrants from the government themselves.
We just talked about the Somali immigrants in Minnesota. It's $700 million.
It's one thing if they're working a job, earning the money, and then sending it back home. Yes. It's another thing if the government's giving them the money.
The UK remits more than £2 billion overseas every year. Some of the poorest economies, like Somalia, are entirely dependent on money remitted by the Somali diaspora. Unlike official aid, remittances between family can't be embezzled or misspent by corrupt regimes. So significant cuts to immigration would cut off a major financial lifeline to the world's poorest, resulting in stronger demand for government aid. The UK...
That's an insane argument to make for immigration. I mean, Somalia must be swimming in cash right now just from the US. Imagine all the other countries where there's Somali immigrants and that can continue to send money over that the government gives them as help.
Well, it's just the amount of corruption in these countries. The money never really trickles down. It stays in the hands of a few, and it's usually the politicians.
Usually stays around Dubai, apparently.
Oh yeah, we have two stories in Australia, and then we'll head to...
And Ethel says, England, 1984. That was the only message for here, but we are trying to go quickly, so if there are any more...
Calm down, don't go that fast.
From the next section. Okay, hold on. Ethel also says, is Zahawi a relative of Mamdani by chance? Their names kind of resonate. Probably. In
They all sound the same.
You said it, I didn't. Okay, let's move on to Australia.
And this was the original story that came out with the censorship and how they wanted to ban X. Since this came out, it's rumored that Canada is kind of pulling out of this agreement now.
So Jim Ferguson says, global censorship coup is underway. Starmer in Britain, Albanese in Australia, and now Canada also might simultaneously floating bans or shutdowns of X, the only major platform Elon Musk cannot be controlled on. This is not about AI images, not about safety. This is about silencing the last open digital town square before the public realizes what's being done to them. The moment Musk broke the algorithmic control grid and governments lost their ability to shape reality, now they want the platform shut down, not regulated, eliminated. When multiple Western governments move in lockstep, it isn't coincidence, it's coordination. They don't fear misinformation. They fear free speech they can't stop and that can criticize them. If X goes dark, it won't be because of content. It will be because of power lost control.
Yeah, and it's very interesting. Even in academia, they're bringing in classes into colleges and schools to convince people that free speech is no longer the way of the West and hate speech is the way to go.
Even here in Mexico.
Elon Musk is accusing the UK government of being fascist after stepping up their threats to ban the social media site X that he owns over AI-generated sexualized images. There have been growing concerns about the tool known as Grok being used to create deep fake images of people, even children, without their consent. Well, Elon Musk took to X earlier this morning, attacking the UK government, saying they just want to suppress free speech. Also writing separately, why is the UK government so fascist? He posted. Our political correspondent, Nick Martin, joins me now. And Nick, this comes against the backdrop of Elon Musk warming up his relationship with President Trump after their famous falling out, which means the government's going to have to tread, presumably, quite carefully.
Yeah, they are, but it is escalating, there's no doubt, into somewhat of a row. This is all about X's AI chatbot Grok, which...
Every single Australia story ends up being a UK story. This is
okay,
Sky News UK.
You can leave it there. But yeah, this just kind of keeps on the fact that there is something bigger going on in the background. The neoliberal governments around the world are really losing power and they're desperate to hang on to it. And the best way they can come up to think about that is censorship. And it's not going to work. It's going to turn the populations of these countries against them even more than they already are.
And a lot of it being done through hate speech and hate laws. Dr. Russell McGregor says Australia will pass the toughest hate law ever seen on Tuesday. It's called the Combating Anti-Semitism, Hate and Extremism Bill 2026. Yes.
Today, can I say that I will write this afternoon to the Speaker of the House of Representatives for Parliament to be recalled next Monday and Tuesday, both the House of Representatives and the Senate. The legislation will then be debated on Tuesday in the House of Representatives. We intend to have that legislation pass the House before question time, which will occur at the normal time at 2 o'clock, and then will be considered by the Senate in the afternoon in order to ensure its passage on that day. The bill is the Combating Anti-Semitism, Hate and Extremism Bill.
And they always use these specialty groups or these situations that happen and then give special rights to these specialty groups and then bring hate speech laws on the back, which basically strips the rights of citizens and free speech from citizens. This is why you have to be very, very concerned when they start making protected classes, whether it's Islam, whether it's Christianity, whether it's women. Women are a big one right now. Especially in Mexico, they're passing all kinds of laws on the back of women.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds weird, but yes.
Let's go to the Middle East, and then we'll go to RU and BLE after that. We only have 2 stories for the Middle East, and they're related to Iran.
Yes. I still haven't changed that India flag, but I will.
Okay, let's fire through these 2.
From Marian Alpha, Iran to Trump says, hit us and we'll light up Israel and your bases. Iran's parliamentary speaker just told Trump loud and clear, try anything stupid and Israel burns, along with every U.S. base in the region. No metaphors, no diplomacy, just straight up threat.
Yeah, the previous 12-day war that happened in Iran where Trump kind of bombed them and then Israel kind of took over. There's a lot of information coming out now that they were attempting a color revolution at that point, which failed. It really looks like this is another attempted color revolution, but over a long period of time. And I don't know if it's going to work, but they're desperately trying.
And we also continue to see protests ramping up and happening in Iran.
It's a breaking news coming into us about Iran. There is a meeting underway in Iran's parliament at present, and the Reuters news agency has just reported that the parliamentary speaker there has warned US President Donald Trump that any attack would lead to Tehran striking Israel and regional US bases as legitimate targets. Donald Trump has repeated his show of support for protesters in Iran just last night. He said the US was ready to help as those protesters face more threats of a brutal crackdown. We've had warnings from the country's Attorney General saying that anyone who went out on the streets would be considered an enemy of God, which is a charge that carries the death penalty.
Okay, you can leave it there. And I want to say this. I don't agree with Trump going in there, especially he's making threats. If protesters get shot, we're going to come in there. So, I mean...
and there have been a lot of people.
But, yeah, previously there was, yeah. But if that's going to be the excuse to go in and start a forever war, I'm not for it, number one. But number two, oh, God, you can go. I forgot what...
Well, and also over the weekend, we did see a lot of demonstrations worldwide for Iran and for the liberation of Iran. But it's interesting, again, I will mention again, that the Democratic Party has now completely denounced Hamas all almost at the same time. So it does look like something might be happening. We also saw, for example, in Los Angeles, when there were pro-Iranian revolution or whatever you want to call it, demonstrators, there was a U-Haul truck that plowed through it. I thought you were going to have the video, but you didn't. But I just wanted to mention that as well, that it is now going overseas and impacting elsewhere.
But Trump is making threats
and people are being ended.
Trump is making threats to the Iranian government if any protesters are shot, that there will be consequences for that. They're trying to signal to the protesters that you can do what you want. There's not going to be repercussions from the government now, which will foment more and more people coming into the streets. That's why I really do think the U.S. is trying to foment, probably with other countries as well, a color revolution within Iran right now.
And Marinafal says, Iran's exiled crown prince to Trump says, let's liberate Iran and make it great again.
And we just seen a picture on our interview with him on our last episode, and he was much more humble, much more meek. He's now starting to become emboldened here.
Yeah, Reza Pahlavi.
And this is the pick for the U.S. If there is a replacement candidate or a regime shift, they want this guy in.
Mr. President, you have already established your legacy as a man committed to peace and fighting evil forces. There is a reason why people in Iran are renaming streets after your name. They know that you are totally opposite to Barack Obama or Joe Biden. They know that you're not going to throw them under the bus as they have had before. This is why they believe that this time they are empowered by the hope that you have their back. Your words of solidarity with the Iranian people and your administration has had tremendous positive effect. Let's hope that we can permanently seal this legacy by liberating Iran so that we and you can make Iran great again. Let's partner on this and have a better future for our countries and for our people. This is an opportunity that has presented itself. I'm prepared to return to Iran at the first possible opportunity. I'm already planning on that in the transition team. We hope only that the Iranian people this time will be victorious, and they will be, because I know that Iranians are prepared to die for this cause, and so am I. We're doing everything we can, and I think it's not just for us as Iranians, it's for the whole world. Iranians are prepared to sacrifice, not just for themselves.
And they're really covering Iran with Starlinks over the last 15 days to make sure people are using...
And trying to take them down.
That people are using VPNs and this messaging is getting out there. That's the gentleman they want to kind of have the regime change. They want... his statements have become more and more aggressive, saying he's ready to go back into the country if there is a change in regime. They want that messaging to get out there, and I think they've told him to take a much harder stance so people on the ground really start to foment a color revolution.
It's interesting because it reminds me of the microcosm. I worked at 2 different schools in Vancouver, high schools, and we had a lot of Iranian students. And one time we had Iranian students fighting over which was the real flag of Iran, the one with the lion, I don't know the specific names, or the one that is being used right now by the regime. And it ended up with them punching each other out and us having to intervene. But that just kind of gave me a tiny example of what could and has been happening lately. So,
okay, we're going to head over to RUMBLE for the last couple stories. If you want to join us over there, that would be great. If you're not subscribed, please do so. We're really trying to get to 1,000 subscribers so we can monetize the channel on a permanent basis.
Yes, and thank you so much for being here. And thanks so much for your comments. Non-Neil, Walker, Rafa, Ethel on RUMBLE. And to everybody else watching as well. Thank you so much.
If you can like it as well, that really helps us break the algorithm, hopefully.
Yes. Thank you. And we'll see you shortly.